My doo-doos. Did you see Nadoosh email? It's scary. I don't know. I think Nadoosh has issues. I'm not sure. Fuck. Sorry. Unignore Sir Lazarus. He said he would tier 4 sub if you did. Ooh, okay.
Le meilleur dans un petit-déj, c'est ça.
Oh.
You're a fucking statistician.
Oh, I upgraded my subscriber thing. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's loud enough or not. We're gonna keep this until Mr. Mutton gets mad at me. Make it louder. Tried to modify it from its original volume. I wasn't sure if it was. Let's see. What do we? Oh God. Subscriptions. Baby meal. What's up, Melly Melly? Oh fuck, I didn't clip the. Hold on, this is gonna. It's the original's really loud.
You're a genius, dude. How do you do it? You're a fucking statistician.
Wait, that doesn't sound that loud. Wait, why does it not sound that loud now? Hold on.
How do you do it? You're a fucking statistician. You're a fucking statistician.
Wait, is my volume turned down on this computer? Oh, I have Audacity turned down. This is how loud it actually is.
You're a fucking statistician.
That's way too loud. Wait, what? Hold on. Why? Hold on. Okay. Amplify. We're gonna cut the sound by 5 decibels.
You're a fucking statistician.
I think that's plenty loud enough. It's a little too loud. It's way too loud. Wait, what is all this? Hold on. I just deleted my shit. God damn it. Hold on. It's like 30% louder than your voice. What if I just do... Hold on, what if I try this? 1 sec. Test subscription. Oh, no, I already deleted it. Fuck, hold on. Why? How is Streamlabs so fucking unstable? Oh my god. Click this. Twitch is fucked right now? This is not even Twitch, it's just Streamlabs. Jesus. Okay, I'll fuck with this later, I guess, since...
You're a fucking statistician!
Oh. That's a good volume, right? Or is that too loud? Title 7 prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. I think you could probably add sexual orientation there. It's probably not the worst thing in the world.
You're a fucking statistician!
This is a test.
Is that okay? Or is that still too loud? Turn it down again.
You're a fucking statistician!
This is a test.
fucking statistician!
This is a test.
This is going to get really annoying. Good. I hope it does. Okay, well, Streamlabs just crashes every now and then, so we'll see what happens.
It's the cartel.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
What's that?
I don't think I trust this. Wait. Hold on.
Oh my god,
Yo.
your ass is so huge. The fuck?
What's up? How are you?
I'm really good. Are you a girl or a guy?
Of course I am. What the hell?
Okay, because you have like huge tits, so I just have to see that.
Oh yeah.
No, yeah. Oh fuck, what the?
What you
I don't like this, bro.
Okay. Where's Dan? Come make him read this to us. Dan, there was a tournament today we could have played in, and you fucked it all up by not being awake at 5 a.m. 8
it was
a.m.
at 5
actually.
a.m. Also, no notice whatsoever.
Dan, you shouldn't need notice. You should just be ready. The crack of dawn.
Oh my god, this is a long fucking article.
Dan. Stop complaining.
All right. Jon Stewart is back to weigh in. For all the value Jon Stewart delivered as a political satirist and voice of reason during his 16-year run as the host of The Daily Show, it's quite possible to suggest that the political and media bizarro world in which we live, where skepticism is the default, news is often indistinguishable from entertainment, and entertainers have usurped public authority from the country's political leaders, is one that he and his show helped to usher in. Look, we certainly were part of that ecosystem, but I don't think that news became entertainment because they thought our show was a success, Stewart says. 24-hour news networks are built for one thing, and that's 9/11. There are very few events that would justify being covered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so in the absence of urgency, they have to create it. You create urgency through conflict. That pervasive sense of political and social conflict has only grown since Stewart left the air in 2015. It has also made Stewart's post Daily Show silence, apart from a few guest spots on his friend and colleague Stephen Colbert's show. He has mostly been out of the spotlight. More intriguing. What has he been thinking about this country while he's been gone? Now he has returned with some answers. Stewart, who is 57, has written and directed Irresistible, a political satire about a small Wisconsin town that becomes engulfed in a political spectacle when a Democratic strategist and his Republican counterpart become fixated on the larger symbolic value and bellwether potential of the local mayoral race. The film, which will make its theatrical and video-on-demand premiere on June 26, is evidence that being away from the grind of a daily TV show has expanded rather than shrunk Stewart's satirical powers. He's well aware, though, that in this exceedingly polarized time, making a comedy that takes pot shots at both political parties, as Irresistible does, is an invitation to criticism. You're going to have people on the left who go, in the time of Trump, all you should be doing is a Fahrenheit 11/9. There is no purpose other than to destroy the mothership, Stewart says. And the other side's possible reaction to his return? There are people on the right predisposed to say, fuck that guy. Some things never change. Narrator, or interviewer. How strange is it, after having been basically out of the public eye for 5 years, to be coming back with something now? The world is on fire, here's my new movie. Seems like an awkward spot to be in. Jon Stewart. It's like showing up to a plane crash with a chocolate bar. There's tragedy everywhere, and you're like, does anyone want chocolate? It feels ridiculous. But what doesn't feel ridiculous is to continue to fight for nuance and precision and solutions. Narrator. Not narrator, interviewer. You know, I've been trying to think of some precise, encapsulating question to ask you about what we've been witnessing over the last few weeks, and everything I was coming up with felt forced or phony. Maybe it's better because you've been eloquent during times of crisis in the past, just to ask what you've been thinking about and seeing in the aftermath of George Floyd's killing. Jon Stewart. I'd like to say I'm surprised by what happened to him, but I'm not. This is a cycle, and I feel that in some ways the issue is that we're addressing the wrong problem. We continue to make this about the police. The how of it. How can the police? It's about sensitivity and de-escalation training and community policing. All that can make for a less egregious relationship between the police and people of color. But the how isn't as important as the why, which we never address. The police are a reflection of a society. They're not a rogue alien organization that came down to torment the black community. They're enforcing segregation. Segregation is legally over, but it never ended. The police are, in some respects, a border patrol, and they patrol the border between the two Americas. We have that so that the rest of us don't have to deal with it. Then that situation erupts, and we express our shock and indignation. But if we don't address the anguish of the people, the pain of being a people who built this country through forced labor, people say, I'm tired about everything that has to do with race. Well, imagine how fucking exhausting it is to live that. Interviewer. I guess that you're saying that the police and policing are a mirror of societal power structures, but it doesn't quite address police brutality. We can't absolve that. Jon Stewart. Police brutality is an organic offshoot of the dehumanization of those power structures. There are always going to be consequences of authority. When you give someone a badge and a gun, that's going to create its own issues, and there's no question that those issues can be addressed with greater accountability. It can be true that you can value and admire the contribution and sacrifice that it takes to be a law enforcement officer or an emergency medical worker in this country, and yet still feel that there should be standards and accountability. Both can be true. But I still believe that the root of this problem is the society that we've created contains this schism, and we don't deal with it because we've outsourced our accountability to the police. Interviewer. Does the scale and intensity of the protests suggest some positive strides towards accountability? Jon Stewart. Maybe. Look, every advancement towards equality has come with the spilling of blood. Then, when that's over, a defensiveness from the group that has been doing the oppressing. There's always this begrudging sense that black people are being granted something, when it's white people's lack of being able to live up to the defining words of the birth of the country that is the problem. There's a lack of recognition of the difference in our system. Chris Rock used to do a great bit. No white person wants to change places with a black person. They don't even want to exchange places with me, and I'm rich. It's true. There's not a white person out there who would want to be treated like even a successful black person in this country. And if we don't address the why of that treatment, that is just window dressing. You know, we're in a bizarre time of quarantine. White people lasted 6 weeks and then they're storming out of a state building with rifles shouting, "Give me liberty! This is causing economic distress. I'm not going to wear a mask. That's tyranny. That's 6 weeks versus 400 years of quarantining a race of people. The policing is an issue, but it's the least of it. We use the police as surrogates to quarantine these racial and economic inequalities so that we don't have to deal with them." Interviewer. Given all that has happened over the last 4 years, let alone in the last month, is there any part of you that wishes you were more regularly a part of the conversation? Jon Stewart. No. I think there are different ways to be in the conversation. I consider a career to be a conversation. Action is conversation, and I've taken more action in the last 4 or 5 years than I ever have in my life. Sometimes that action can speak more profoundly than a daily monologue. So I don't view myself as being out of the conversation. I view myself as not having a show. And if you're asking, do you wish you had a show? Sometimes I do, but not the one that I had. The one that I had is in wonderful hands, and it continues to elevate in a way that I couldn't have. My efficacy for that conversation has passed. Interviewer. What has stood out to you over the last few months about the political conversation or response around the pandemic? Jon Stewart. That the Trump administration has not changed its practices. You would have thought that somebody would have mentioned to Trump that the idea of rising to greatness. You would have thought that somebody would have mentioned to Trump the idea of rising to greatness. Instead, it's, why don't I tweet out that Joe Scarborough killed people? Would that be a good pandemic? I guess his behavior is understandable because what is he going to run on? His record? He's just going to pick at scabs. Interviewer. How about the other side? What do you make of the campaign that Joe Biden is trying to run in the middle of this? Jon Stewart. I feel like it hasn't begun. I can tell you that without the pandemic, it would have been 3 months of will Bernie supporters ever forgive Biden? And the questions to Biden would have been, do you think the Bernie bros are out of control? What do you make of this statement that one of them posted on Twitter about a woman? That would have been a majority of the coverage. The pandemic canceled that whole storyline. Interviewer. But is Biden making a strong enough case for why people should vote for him as opposed to just not voting for President Trump? It almost seems as if he's content to do that thing you see in sports, which teams play not to lose rather than to win. And it almost always ends badly. Jon Stewart. But there's no oxygen for the campaign other than the oxygen that Trump's Twitter feed puts into things. And no matter what, Trump has defined the terms of the fight. It's going to be, what is America's greatness? You have to fight those terms, and that's the opportunity to define what you believe is our greatness. Now, that's not to say the political consultants won't say to Biden, you need to define your own lane. But he doesn't. The road is built. Interviewer. Was the speech Biden gave in Philadelphia a possible inflection point for him? Jon Stewart. I thought there were things in that absolutely needed to be said, but I'm old enough to have heard a lot of speeches and old enough to be dubious about our ability to overcome our defensiveness about racism. That doesn't mean we can't be the generation to dismantle structural racism for good, but it takes effort. Imagine the anguish of living in a country that profited off the forced labor of your ancestors and still having this conversation. Hey, do you think we should fly the flag of the people that fought to enslave your ancestors? What do you guys think of that? Good idea or bad idea? And then you hear, it's history. It's not history. It's hagiography. And if you go down there and read the plaques on the Confederate monuments, they aren't. Quote, this expletive thought he could enslave people based on the color of their skin. That's not what the plaque says. The plaque honors them. Enraging doesn't begin to describe it. Interviewer. Even aside from the pandemic or George Floyd's murder, the political climate has changed so much in the 5 years since you left The Daily Show. It's nastier, more extreme, and more combative. Have those changes affect the nature of or efficacy of political satire? Satire? Question mark. Jon Stewart. Satire and efficacy are probably words that should not be in the same sentence. But in a way, Donald Trump's presidency has been a positive because it shows that American democratic exceptionalism is not a birthright. He's like a white hat hacker. You go, I think we've done a great job of building a safeguarded system. Could you test the vulnerabilities? The hacker goes, boop, boop, boop. I'm in through the back door and I stole all your information. With Donald Trump, it's like, we have a very fair and impartial judiciary. What do you think, Donald? He goes, boop, boop, boop. Actually, if I move some people around, I can turn it into a corrupt partisan affair. And I used to talk about how The Daily Show was a refinery. We would take unrefined material in the morning and try to create something relatively palatable by the end of the day. Some days we created a beautiful blended whiskeys. Other days we created rot gut. We had a system to try and address that challenge, and that's just a dopey show. With the government, they've instead created a system to insulate and propagate their own interest. And I think the root of that is for-profit incentivization of the industrial political complex. Interviewer. Which is the main target of your movie? Where did the idea to take that on come from? Jon Stewart. It arose from a couple things. One was the Jon Ossoff campaign in Georgia. The incredible outsized importance placed on this one little race that became emblematic of the future red and blue. The National Party spent $50 million in one district in Georgia on this weird one-off congressional race. The second was a friend of mine had run for Congress in West Virginia, a little Jewish dude who had been in Afghanistan and Iraq. He held a campaign event in a townhouse in the Village in New York. I was sitting there the whole time thinking, this is the problem. This guy had to come up here and scrounge a few dollars from this group of people who have absolutely no connection to West Virginia, but somehow believe that West Virginia was connected to their large political goals. The third trigger was Bob Shrum and these guys who are viewed as the consiglieres as their parties. These older white guys who have failed at almost every turn are still brought in as the old wise man. Tell me, when you were with Dukakis... Oh, that was a quote, sorry. Interviewer. How'd you come up with that brilliant tank photo? Can I skip some of these that are just stupid?
No.
Okay, I'm going to... Interviewer. Attacking corporations seems fairly nonpartisan. Are you at all optimistic that audiences on the right who might be inclined to give you a thumbs down will be open to the movie and its ideas? Jon Stewart. You don't make things based on that. My perspective is I'm trying to talk about what I believe is wrong systematically that gives us corrupted outcomes because the system is incentivized to do that. Is incentivized for conflict as well as corruption in a more classic sense, which is money from larger sources pouring into a place not to help but to gain control. Those are your spark notes. Hopefully it's a funny movie. Maybe at the end you go, you know what? We got a fucked up permanent campaign system with too much money in it. Don't people know that? We don't care about the movie shit chat. Let's see. It's clear you've got things you want to talk about. Are you sure you haven't missed having a platform? Is that part of what compelled your movie? I think everyone would like it to be as neat as, I've been thinking about this subject and here is the manner in which I present it to you, my masterpiece. But this is all part of a conversation that I started having with audiences years ago. The enemy is noise. The goal is clarity. It's not that I have one particular goal and I sit and design things. It's not Fox News, which does have one particular goal, which is purely ideological and partisan, has been remarkably successful. Interviewer. Fox and Bill O'Reilly in particular used to be your great foils. Now, the emblematic Fox personalities are Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson. What does their ascendance represent for the network? Jon Stewart. I think they're just the next level. As things progress, to get the same dopamine hit, you have to push it further. Although O'Reilly pushed it pretty far, the question was always, why would you talk to him? Why do you have him on your show if you can't destroy him? If you want to talk about the worst legacy of The Daily Show, it was probably that. Interviewer. That everyone you spoke to who disagreed with had to be Jim Cramer? Jon Stewart. That's right. That's the part of it that I probably most regret. Those moments where you had a tendency, even subconsciously, to feel like we have to line up the evisceration expectation. We tried not to give something more spice than it deserved, but you were aware of, say, what went viral. Resisting that gravitational force is really hard. Interviewer. We used to have news and we had entertainment. Now those categories are totally intertwined, to the extent that it's not far-fetched to say that we just have varieties of entertainment. And similarly, people are looking at entertainers rather than politicians as political authorities. I don't think it's too far off base to suggest that, unintentionally or not, The Daily Show played a part in that transformation. What do you think about those changes and what they've wrought? Jon Stewart. I think you have to look at what incentivized the system. The news didn't become The Daily Show because at its core, The Daily Show was a critique of the news and a critique of those systems. If they'd taken in what we were saying, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing now, creating urgency through conflict. Conflict has become the catalyst for the economic model. The entire system functions that way now. We are two sides in a country of 350 million people. Interviewer, what do you think of the news media's handle on this political moment more generally? Jon Stewart. I don't think it has ever had a good handle on a political moment. It's not designed for that. It's designed for engagement. It's like YouTube and Facebook, an information laundering, perpetual radicalization machine. It's like porn. I don't mean to be that flip. When you were prepubescent, the mere hint of a bra strap could send you into ecstasy. I'm 57 now. If it's not two nuns and a mule, I can't even watch it. Do you understand my point? The algorithm is not designed for thoughtful engagement and clarity. It's designed to make you look at it longer. Interviewer, have there been any positive changes, though? Let me give you an example of what might be one. When you were doing The Daily Show, part of what made you unique was your last sane man in crazy town quality. You would actually say that someone in power was telling a lie when the nightly newscasters wouldn't.
You're a fucking
Now they will say
statistician!
that. Is that a step in the right direction? Jon Stewart. The media's job is to deconstruct the manipulation, not to just call it a lie. It's about informing on how something works so that you can understand the lie's purpose. What are the structural issues underneath the lie? The media shouldn't take the political system personally or allow its own narcissism to rise to the narcissism of the politicians or become offended that the politicians are lying. Their
You're a
job
fucking
is to manipulate.
statistician!
Interviewer. Are the controversial things that President Trump says structurally motivated? Do you believe he's thinking on that level? Jon Stewart. I think he
You're a
understands
fucking
very well,
statistician!
and the right understands very well, that undermining the credibility of the institutions that people look to for help defining and making sense of reality is
You're
the
a
key
fucking
to bending reality
statistician!
to your will. It's a wonderful rhetorical trick. He had a great one on Memorial Day weekend. Quote, "We're getting great reviews on our pandemic response.
You're a
but
fucking
of course, we're not
statistician!
getting credit for it."
Any
End quote.
statisticians?
The twisted logic of that. If you're getting great reviews, I'm pretty sure that's considered credit. It's like saying, quote, "I'm being praised,
You're a
but of
fucking
course I won't be praised
statistician!
for it," end quote. Language is utterly meaningless. Everything is placed into its category in the tribal war and who its real victims are. Donald Trump and his minions.
fucking
Poor little
statistician!
billionaire president who can't catch a break. It's incredible. Are we all just extras in this guy's movie? But I do feel as if his approach has worked for him his whole life. Well, interviewer, he did become president, Jon Stewart. Right, he's a man who has suffered no consequences. His is a reckless born of experience. He's like a malevolent Mr. Magoo.
You're a fucking
He always
statistician!
knows the I-beam is
And
going to swing down and the
statisticians.
building is going to collapse, but who cares because he'll walk out unscathed. That's what he's learned. Interviewer,
You're a
how much
fucking
might his
statistician!
administration's response to
Oh,
COVID-19
no.
hurt him in November? Jon Stewart. That's the question the media asks. What they should be focused on here, here's what happens when you hollow
You're a
out the
fucking
pandemic response team.
statistician!
You have to go after the case of competence and anti-corruption. The media wants to prosecute the case of offensiveness. That doesn't matter. But there were decisions about PPE in the states that were
Thank
made
you,
without
Papa
any
Dan, for
federal
the bedtime
response.
story.
And that
It's
does matter. It's really about
Lepstiny.
what is government? Are we articles of confederation? Are we the Constitution? Are we the United States? What are we?
Pepe.
If we're just 50 states, and if New York can push Delaware out of the way and get masks, and now Delaware has to pay 10 times what it was going to pay, are we being led or
Fucking
not?
statistician!
It's the wildest thing.
Here.
I've never seen anybody who can say that in the same breath as the president does, quote, "I'm in charge, only I can fix this, and I take no responsibility,"
You're a
end
fucking
quote. You
statistician!
can't process that. So what you have to process is the actual process. How do masks help? Do they help? You have to really explain it to people, but we allow the mask wearing to be
You're a fucking
reduced to its
statistician!
symbolic meaning. Things like masks can't just become another avatar of political representation. That's where we go wrong. Interviewer. Part of what you're talking about is trust, which makes me
He
think this
handles
fundamental
my-
question that pundits use to have about how seriously people should take you. Sometimes you would avoid that question by saying you were just a
You're a
comedian,
fucking statistician!
which almost seems quaint now, doesn't it? Because obviously you were being serious with jokes added in. But were people hungry for you to take an explicit stand about your politics when the
You're a
truth was
fucking
pretty clear all along?
statistician!
What was that
Weed,
about?
it feels good,
Jon
man.
Stewart. I mean, I was a contrarian pain in the ass. So when people would ask those questions, I would argue with them. They said, quote, you're falling back on being a
fucking
comedian. Unquote.
statistician.
I'm not falling back.
Statistician.
I have to stand by everything I say. But if I make a joke that you say is inappropriate, then you're asking me, quote, where do you stand in this system, unquote.
You're a
They were
fucking
just asking me to
statistician.
use their language,
Pog.
when the language of satire is different. I'm not Jonathan Swift, but it'd be like him, but it'd be like saying to him, quote, so you're saying that we should eat them?
DANKMEMES.
No, but my point that we need to look at how we treat the have-nots is valid, end quote.
You're a fucking
Though I think
statistician.
I'm guilty of not
He
necessarily
handles my
being very clear with my
statistician.
intentions sometimes, like with the rally. We're almost done, chat.
Okay.
Interviewer. Or is it more that your intentions with the rally were misguided? At the time, you talked about it as an attempt to encourage some semblance of balance and civility in the way that we talked about one another. That the left shouldn't conflate Tea Partiers and racists,
SADTion,
for example.
Estation, noun
But
conduct
didn't
or
that
speech
downplay the larger
inciting
problem
people
of
to
the
rebel
lunatic
against
fringe on
the
the right being a lot closer to the
authority of
party
a state
center
or
than perhaps
monarch?
you wanted to admit?
You're a
Jon
fucking
Stewart.
statistician.
The rally wasn't about being civil. It was about being precise. The intention was not to suggest that negative things don't exist or that you shouldn't fight them, but to be
You're
as
a
precise
fucking
as you can.
statistician.
It's like Levittown thing with Bill O'Reilly. He talks all about Levittown. Quote, that's where I learned my values. Bootstrapping. I grew up in Levittown, and we learned that work
You're a
does it.
fucking
End quote.
statistician.
Well, guess what?
Let's see
the
how
deed to the
long
property
until the
said
meme
you
is
were not
dead.
allowed to
Bonus
sell them
me,
to a black
Mr.
person.
Mouton, Pepe
Racism
laugh.
is built into the system, but not all the people in it are
You're a
malevolent
fucking
and active racists.
statistician.
There's an inert
I am a
racism that exists,
statistician?
and it's
Wowie.
pernicious. But I don't believe everyone who's part of it is evil. So it's more a question of trying to remove a right-left
You're
access
a
from the
fucking
conversation and
statistician.
instead create a conversation around conditions. Poverty is poverty. The right will talk about poverty a certain way, and the left will talk about poverty a different way. But poor people are
You're
still
a
poor
fucking
people.
statistician.
They're still
Wow,
without political
28
power.
months and Destiny
Interviewer.
still doesn't notice meme.
What you're
Bonus
talking
me,
about is
fuck
looking for
Mr.
common
Mouton.
ground. But does that come at the expense of addressing real divisions about race or religion? Jon Stewart. It would be nice if God would come down and go, all right, I didn't want to say anything, but the Lutherans are right. There's always been the Lutherans. They're my bros. End quote. That's not how it's going to go. Our systems right now is set up so that minor disagreements become arguments. Arguments become conflagrations. Conflagrations
fucking
become feuds.
statistician.
And feuds become wars. It never ends, and it sucks. If you say, quote, I know people who I love who voted for Trump, end quote, people will be like, fuck you. And then I go, I don't think they're racist. And then they go, they are racist. And if they're not racist, they're passively participating in a racist system. And I guess so am I. So are you. We all are. Have your lines in the sand, but understand, do you have a phone? There are probably things in the way that your phone is made that are not the greatest in terms of worker rights. We all have expletive on us. Approaching it in that manner is not both siders or approaching it in that manner is not both siding the issue. And it's not asking for civility. You're always going to demonize those who disagree with you and amnesty those who agree with you. But there has to be some measure of understanding that that's what you're doing. Interviewer. But by now, is it still demonizing a Trump supporter to say that continuing to support him is to participate in perpetuating racism? And shouldn't we demonize anything that perpetuates racism? This idea that we all have blood on our hands, it seems besides the point. Jon Stewart. The moral high ground is absolutely there, but we can all achieve something higher. It's too easy to point at the low-hanging moral fruit without doing the work that those who are supposedly on the side of the angels need to do. There's all this talk of being on the right side of history, but what does that mean? The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Who's bending it? What are we doing to further that? If you just get rid of Trump, that doesn't end this. It's too easy to say, I support this other guy, therefore I'm part of the solution. Or, you support that guy, therefore you're the problem. Now, that is in no way exculpatory to the supporters of this policies or that regime. My point was, what does that judgment get you? What is the accountability that we have for those who really do believe this is just unjust but still accept the tacit societal arrangements? Interviewer. This might be a little Civics 101, but I hope you'll indulge me. A lot of your work has been fundamentally about interrogating certain truths or ideas about America and the American experiment. Things like, what does this country mean? What are its ideals and values? What's a character? Over the last few years, those questions have only become harder to contemplate in any coherent way, let alone answer. Do those questions still hold for you? Jon Stewart. Every society lies to itself to some extent. Every person does, and sometimes you have to face the truth. The truth of the American experiment is that government is messy. It's hard to manage. We are melding cultures and religions in a way that most countries don't. But we have an exceptionalism that we have taken for granted, and we get lost in the symbolism of who we are rather than reality. The reality of who we are is still remarkable. You can't take the anecdotal and pretend it's universal. You can't take a picture of the Lake of the Ozarks and people on top of each other drinking and say, that's how America responded to the pandemic, because it's not. The boots on the ground response has been phenomenally resilient and responsible and courageous. The sense that this could all turn into Mad Max tomorrow always hangs over everything, but it hasn't. There are issues, but again, we point a spotlight on the anecdotal and pretend that it's universal. What that does is feed the narrative for people who want to use it for their own purposes. That's what drives me bananas. We're basically having a giant public fight about symbolism while the reality of our situation goes unexamined. You're talking to me. I made a stupid movie about this, but underpinning that movie is a real thing, and the real thing is the corruption and the incompetence that we don't even think about. 2 more questions. Interviewer, let me ask a bit about your life. For years, all your rhymes were dictated by the demands of The Daily Show. Was it hard to change those? No one cares. Interviewer, what did you start doing with all your time? I learned to play drums. That's such a middle-aged guy thing. Okay, that's the end of the thing. There we go.
Wow, good one, Dan.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think about it? What were your main takeaways?
Wow, I wish he was saying he's coming back to do a show. Fuck that guy, man. He just wants more money. He knows there's more money in movies.
Wow, that's all you got from that, Dan?
What'd you get from that, Steve?
Well, I didn't know you knew how to play drums now. That's really sick. Maybe he'll join my band with me and David Packman.
Maybe.
How do you feel about stats?
About stats?
Yeah. Do you have any statistician friends?
I guess you kind of are a statistician, right?
Some people would say that, yeah.
You think Jon Stewart could successfully, if he was running on the Democratic Party, do you think he would have gotten more support than Biden?
I have no idea. That's a really hard one to answer.
Well, what's your gut? I know you don't have an idea. I don't either.
Immediate gut
what's
is no, but
I think he would.
I mean, like, he's pretty vulgar. Maybe that doesn't matter anymore. I don't think Comedy Central was so popular that it would, like, propel him past, like, Biden. I don't know. I don't know how well he'd do with the black community.
Would you take Jon Stewart over Biden if that was in your control right now,
Hell
knowing
yeah.
nothing of his policies? Yeah.
Jon Stewart's a cool dude.
He is. You know what his real name is?
What?
John Leibowitz.
Oh, nice. Are you upset that he changed his name?
Listen, you got to do it for show business, man. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if I ever get in show business, I'll be like Dan Thundercock or something like that.
Yeah. It's good to know.
Yeah.
What have you been up to today?
Woke up recently, and yeah. What did I do so far?
That's what we're all trying to find out, Dan.
I'm thinking. Nothing. I haven't done anything.
You named your blue blob friend? Wait, can you name your pets? No way, right?
What did you eat today? Chipotle. That's right. First time in fucking forever, man.
Don't tell Andy.
Chipotle's fine. It's fine. It's okay. I mean, it's pretty good.
How's your like little server farm thing doing? Are you still running that?
Yep, still going.
What are you guys mining right now?
We're actually doing a lot of non crypto stuff like AI
Like
and rendering and things like that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's actually a really interesting. So what I'm trying to do, and hopefully I can accomplish this. I'm talking with essentially this guy who's done this for a few different companies now, and the goal is to create the first data center. Well, probably not the first, but one of the largest data centers specifically for high power usage, high density power usage. So when you think, if Chad, if you think of a data center in your mind, and you just picture what that looks like on the inside, right? You see like racks and racks and racks of servers. But you have to realize that there's two things that are going on, which are pretty interesting. One is that most of those racks don't have a lot of power going to them. You would assume a server rack would have a fuck ton of power, but it's not that much. And then the second thing is cooling. And there's not that much. Most data centers are air conditioned. So when you get into rendering and AI and machine learning and all this type of stuff, and if you ask me, hey, Dan, in 10 years, is there going to be more of this stuff or less? I think the answer is obviously much more. Not the same, not a little bit incremental, but it's going to explode with more and more of this heavy usage. Now, most AI and ML stuff, some of it is done on something called the FGPA, but most of it's done still to this day on graphics cards. A lot of them are done on like data center grade graphics cards, which would be the V100. And a lot of them are actually still done on consumer stuff, like a 1080 Ti or 2080 Ti is definitely something that you can do a lot of ML AI work with. So the goal is to create a 30 megawatt data center across the street from our facility, which is actually adjacent to a power plant. And we would direct connect to that power plant. We'd have an entire burner. So it's a natural gas power plant. And we'd have one of their burners basically dedicated to us. It would give us around 2-cent power, all in, no tax, no transmission, no nothing, which is basically as low as you can get, just across the board. And we would build out this data center hosting nothing but, essentially high-grade graphics cards, and it would be a competitor to AWS. So if you look at what Amazon charges right now, if you want to do any type of modeling or rendering anything, it's unbelievably expensive.
Well, yeah, I have a few questions. I'm just curious. Is heat actually like a big concern with these types of rigs? Like,
oh, for sure. Well, I mean, again, it's that meme, right? So it depends on the type of rig you'll build. But if you have V100s, which is what we're loading up with on now, a V100 can use 150 to 200 watts of pop. So you would have a rig having 8 of those cards in a 4U unit, which is basically like, I don't know, 8 inches tall, or maybe not 6 inches tall or something, I don't know. So you would have 8 of those graphics cards in there putting out 1,500 watts of heat. That's a space heater, right? Like that's more than a space heater. I think space heaters are limited to 1,100 watts or something.
Gotcha.
So it's unbelievable.
You can actually measure. You can just straight measure the wattage, right, to figure out how much power.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you nervous for a business plan like this, that a change in policy at like a local utilities company could literally destroy your entire capital investment?
So before you even, I have an option on the land already across from the power plant right now, but this is a massive undertaking. To do this type of thing, you're talking probably in the neighborhood of $30 to $50 million. So it's mostly not going to be my money.
What
it's
state is this in?
Other people's.
Sorry.
It's in New York, near Buffalo.
Okay.
So it's mostly other people's money.
Do you get? Is your goal to get like concessions from like the local legislature or something? That
you will.
Okay.
So I've done that before, but that's kind of limited in scope. So what they do is it's tied to jobs, and with jobs, it's basically a certain amount of jobs gets you an abatement on your property tax. There's a school tax up there too, which you can't get rid of. But so if you create this facility and you pour $50 million into it between building it and filling it with stuff, and you create 100 jobs, which is, I imagine, roughly where we'll be at, somewhere between 75 and 100 jobs, you'll probably get an abatement on your property tax. So whereas normally you would maybe pay, let's say the value of that building would be $30 million or $20 million, whatever. So maybe you would pay $3 or $4 million a year, or no, Jesus Christ, not that much. Whatever the property tax you would pay. Let's say it's $1 million a year.
I'm not necessarily worried about the taxes. I'm thinking more like because part of the big thing that this is resting on is your ability to get that super low power.
Well, we're not going through the grid, right? So this is a private deal with a power plant.
Yeah,
There
but
is
is
no
a power plant? It probably has some kind of public accountability, right? It's either publicly
No,
run
no.
or
Oh no, it's a private power plant that does natural gas turbines, right?
and it's all and
it's
they're.
it's a
Oh, okay. So you're not like beholden to the city, municipality, or anything like that.
correct. No,
Oh, okay,
nothing to
good.
do with that. That's how we are right now. So right now, New York has, at least it's very complicated power stuff. I spent 6 months trying to learn all this shit. I've forgotten a lot of it all at this point. But in New York, at least, power is a very, very fucked up thing. They have an open market, so you can kind of compete for pricing, but it's also zone based. And then there's also municipalities that have that act as their own power plant. So originally, the place we were going to go to was this small fucked up town in the middle of nowhere, and they could get power at 2 cents, which is less than what we're paying now. But they fucking lost their shit when we said that we were going to be taking half their town's power, even though we were creating jobs. So that didn't work out. But in general, you buy power on the open market. It varies between 3 and 5 cents, depending on the time of year and demand. And there's a lot of shit you can do to get frisky with that. But if you just hook directly up to the power plant, don't cross any federal highways, or I think there's something else that you can't cross. You don't pay any tax as well, which is a huge benefit. You're literally just buying power from your neighbor coming in that way. So anyways, that's the goal. We'll see if that happens. The vehicle for the investment would probably be some sort of reverse merger with one of these like dead public companies on the NASDAQ or one of these other things. So surprisingly, there's a lot of companies, even on NASDAQ right now, which are just there in show, meaning they produce no revenue. They have, it's just dead company, right? And what you do is you come in there.
When
and
you say
essentially-
dead company, I mean, if you're listed on the NASDAQ, you have to be you have to have at least like some level of market cap or whatever, right? Isn't that what?
I think how it works is that you typically are going after companies that are currently on the NASDAQ, but are essentially going out of business or have already gone out of business and haven't been delisted at that point, is my understanding. I could be wrong on that. I don't know that much about this. I just know he said that the method for raising a lot of this capital is essentially a reverse merger with some public company that essentially exists only in name. So you're not really doing an IPO because there's no fucking chance this would have any revenue to do an IPO. You're basically taking over a shell corporation that's already publicly traded, and then you do an offering to the people there. But I know fucking nothing about that. But anyways, that's the plan of what can happen. Right now, it's just 2.5 megawatts, but we just did a pretty big deal buying a bunch of V100s, which are pretty crazy graphics cards, and yeah, that's the whole thing.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, Mr. Moon and Cake, you guys, unfortunately, let's give it about a month and a half. Both of you guys will be coming up again. You and about 10 other people this time.
Oh, hold on. This is a. I kept looking back at this thread, and this. I'm sorry. This is funny for me. What is this?
You're a fucking statistician.
Thank you.
WTF? Where am I?
I can't believe I got this guy to respond to me so much. So, so Norris is like an anti-fan of mine. So he'll follow me around different lefty Reddit threads and he'll like post shit on me all the time. He used to be a fan of mine and then now he's ass pain or something. So he's quoting the video and he says, "Real change happens in the voting booth. Yeah, tell that to my country or countries whose governments are toppled by Western governments because they elected socialists and moderate Islamists. Seething Steve will earnestly defend those coups." Oh, wait, no. Okay, so I just responded to him. It's a good thing I wasn't talking about other countries, dumb fuck. Sounds like whatever country you're from would be better off with you not voting anyway. I hope whichever capitalist owner took over your shithole of a country is hurting you around as efficiently as possible. And he goes, so you're okay with other countries being democratic, but you're also okay with telling how other countries should operate their governments? You can't have both, Salty Steve. Whatever makes the most people enslaved to my capitalist system, delivering products at cheap cost for me, I get off on that shit. This guy is like going hard in response. Turkmenistan and Equatorial Guinea has some of the highest natural resources in the world, but the least amount of output because of their dictatorships being propped up by the U.S. and Russia. These don't supply natural gas here, blah, 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 talking about fucked up shit or whatever. and I go, he upvotes himself? What? It automatically upvotes your own post when you post, you fucking moron. New Guinea? Sorry, I don't know. More cheap shit for us in the future. Turkmenistan doesn't supply natural gas to Europe because of the dictator being propped up by Russia. Those evil commies should fuck off then. Exxon had to import American oil workers to Equatorial. How do you pronounce this country's name? New Guinea? Guinea? I don't remember. Hell yes, American jobs. That's fucking amazing. God bless this country. Russia nor Turkmenistan are communist states. This guy just keeps going. I thought you prefer local working, or I thought you prefer locals working in American corporations established in the country of your choice. Are you even a neoliberal? Russia's literally the bedrock of communism, communist thought in the world. I just linked like a Karl Marx wiki page. Local Americans can work those oil fields long distance. It's called commuting. You'd know something about it if you actually had a real job before. The economy of Russia is an upper middle class income mixed and transition economy. It's the 5th largest national economy of Europe. The World Bank doesn't classify it as communist. I can't believe this guy is actually responding to everything I'm typing. Sorry, mate, but pretty much every single thing you've written here is wrong. I'd recommend reading The Invisible Hand by Adam Smith. Once you finish that book, we can have a reasonable discussion. And here's a dozen book recommendations that you should read if you really wanted to trail out. Dude, what the fuck? You think you can impress me with Adam Smith? Bitch, I read actual economic and foreign policy books. In fact, your sub is the reason why I read those books in the first place. Holy shit. I thought about replying with like 24, like Ayn Rand, Sam Harris, Milton Friedman, whatever the fuck. Jesus.
Did you fucking mute me when I was reading that goddamn argument or that fucking thing? You better not have.
No, of course not.
All right. People in chat were lying to me.
Oh, no, I have a new dono sound. Sometimes it was a little loud, but I turned the volume down. Don't worry.
You're a fucking statistician.
Oh, apparently this was a TikTok song.
Good thing. Do you care? Yeah.
It feels really dumb to me. I don't know. Like, we've been using master and slave and computer hardware for how long? Like, I remember master and slave, like, ID,
hard
like,
drives?
yeah, on drives. Remember back in the
The
day, you'd have to,
jumpers?
reset the jumper in the back, take out the little pin and connect.
Yep.
Yeah, like, are we gonna get rid of, like, blacklisting and whitelisting? I don't know. I feel like you can run that back, like, so far. What are they substituting master and slave with?
Let's see.
Or yeah, what about male and female, like USB? I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have a hard, I don't know. It seems really dumb to me, but. Have you killed the worm boss? Or just the eye and the slime. We're gonna do Skeletor or Skeletron next. Do you think there's enough walls? Oh, stop making them back from the platforms. pylon, put it here, then bring the angler back? Is there a way to undo? Oh no, there is. Wait, where the fuck did that chair go? Oh my god. Oh. Do the worm before scouting to get the worm's card from Easter World. Yeah, okay. Have to wait for this guy to fucking leave. Dan.
What are your plans for today? What happened to your interview?
Interview. I was supposed to have a meeting this morning, and the lady fucked her schedule up. So. Why aren't these guys talking about loving each other? They should love each other. Put them close together? How close do they need? Oh, it's actually pretty short. Isn't it like within 25 blocks or something? Oh my god, that was all I needed. Who said it? Who said that in chat? Good job. Thank God. Okay, now we can get back and forth to the fishermen in the ocean. I can at least have like a snow base for like my halfway point. Just heads up, the actual NPC proximity doesn't matter at all. Well, yeah, it measures from the housing thing or whatever. Yeah. Evicting the angler did work immediately. Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I had to put the housing close together because they were on opposite ends of the house. They weren't close enough to realize how much they loved each other. What do you think is more enjoyable, master mode or expert mode? If you want to play like a fun game and have like a fun time or whatever, expert mode is probably better. The master mode in this game is actually really shit, but I don't know. What are your issues with master mode? Well, they made like master mode, which is to like make the game harder. But I think the difference between like expert and medium and shit in this game is like the AI actually changes on like the bosses or how well enemies lead shots. Like it becomes like a harder game. But I think in master mode, all they did was they just basically overtuned everything. Like they just gave everything more damage and more HP basically. That's basically all it is, I think. Not master mode, I'm sorry, I meant main branch mode. Oh no, did Quinn die? What happened?
He enrages outside of the ocean biome. Again, fuck you, chat.
Rip. I need I don't know if I have any of these people yet. Thoughts on the jazz hip-hop style coming from Japan? Do you think it's too repetitive like math rock? I don't know what the jazz hip-hop style means. What do you mean? Japan has done jazz for decades. Like New Jabbies? There are tons of artists similar. Oh sure, I mean, would you say New Jabs? New Jabes? Would you say that that guy started lo-fi hip-hop? I mean, it's basically what it is, right? Or not basically, it is what it is. But I mean, like, I don't know, people all over the world do that now, right? Not just people from Japan or whatever. You can buy a cat dog punny from this. They can live in the same. Wait, really? Ooh. Find offline TV. How do I get this fucking Goblin Scout to come invade my shit? Does he have to actually get to my base, or will he just do it on his own? You have to break the orbs and the corruption. I killed one. I've got a few tattered clods, if that's what you guys are talking about. Oh, okay. I've definitely got enough of these then to do that. Move. Oh no, I should have brought a builder potion. It's not really necessary to place walls in your arena. Yeah, but it looks ugly if you don't, okay? Why slabs though? I don't know, it looks cool for background. I think floating blocks walls go worse than 3 to 5 layers of platforms. Why? Then you have wall. You got a structure up there. With platforms, you're just floating, floating platforms. Thank you. I see how I can summon the goblins. Jesus. Yes, GTs. Holy shit. We've all seen it.
Several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets used the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them.
Wait, what? Hold on.
Being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black. You still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
Not to talk shit, I don't know anything about this guy sounds really stupid and really conspiratorial. I don't know, is this guy like actually like a good dude? Yuri Beznemov? Is he like a real guy, or is a KGB defector? That doesn't tell me anything. There's a lot of people that were in the CIA or NSA that are probably dumb as fuck too.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place, and who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people. And the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. They will join the links of dissenters, dissidents.
Yes.
Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches. Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. This they don't understand, and it will be greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him
buddy, ain't nothing
concentration
but a
camp,
peanut.
he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. So basically, America is stuck with demoralization, and unless, even if you start right now, here, this minute, you start educating new generation of Americans, it will still take you 15 to 20 years to turn the tide of ideological perception of reality back to normalcy and patriotism. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, it doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. He will go to Moscow to kiss the bottoms of new generation of Soviet assassins. Never mind. He will create false illusions that the situation is under control. Situation is not under control. Situation is disgustingly out of control. Most of the American politicians, media, and educational system trains another generation of people who think they are living at a peacetime. False. The United States is in a state of war, undeclared total war against the basic principles and the foundations of this system. And the initiator of this war is not Comrade Andropov, of course. It's the system. However ridiculous it may sound, the world communist system or the world communist conspiracy, whether I scare some people or not, I don't give a hoot. If you are not scared by now, nothing can scare you. But you don't have to be paranoid about it. What actually happens now, that unlike myself, you have literally several years to live on unless the United States wake up. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer.
It feels like Jordan Peterson went back in time, became a Russian, and then came to give speeches. This is so stupid as fuck.
You must realize what some of the political issues are here, that many people in the United States happen to believe that the United States policy is wrong in Vietnam, and the Viet Cong are correct in wanting to organize their country in their own way politically. This happens to be pretty much the opinion of Western Europe and many other parts of the world. If it is a novelty in Chicago,
wait, where did
that
the
is too
Goblin
bad.
Invasion
But
go?
I
Why did it
assume that
cancel?
The point of the American democracy
And some
is
people
you
were
can
pro-Nazi,
express
too.
any
Some
point of
people
view
were
you want.
pro-Nazi.
Shut up a minute.
No, I won't.
And
Some people were
Stop.
pro-Nazi,
You are.
and the answer is that they were well treated by people who ostracized them, and I'm for ostracizing people who egg on other people to shoot American Marines and American soldiers. I know you don't care.
Oh, I have to be at my spawn?
The only sort of pro-crypto-Nazi I can think of is yourself. Failing that, I would only say that we can't have
Now listen, you
the right of
queer. Stop
assembly.
calling me
and
a crypto-Nazi.
Let's stop
or I'll
calling
slap
names
you in
and
your
let's get-
goddamn face, and
let's-
you'll stay plastered.
Gentlemen,
Oh, Bill.
Let the
let's
author of Myra
explode.
Breckenridge go back to his pornography and stop making any illusions of
I
Nazism to
beg
somebody
you
who was
to-
in the infantry in the last war.
You were
and
not in the
post-Nazi.
infantry, as a matter of
I
fact.
was
You
the
didn't
second.
fight in
I
the
would like
infantry.
to
You were
ask
not.
What's the point of this?
Welcome to Uncommon Knowledge. I'm Peter Robinson. Our show today, One Decade, the 60s.
God, why are these audios so bad?
If you get hold of two magnets and you push them, you can feel this pushing between them. Turn it around the other way and they slam together. Now, what is it, the feeling between those two magnets?
What do you mean, what's the feeling between the two magnets?
There's something there, isn't there? I mean, the sensation is that there's something there when you push these two magnets together.
Listen to my question. What is the meaning when you say that there's a feeling? Of course you feel it. Now, what do you want to know?
What I want to know is what's going on
The magnets
between these
repel
two
each
bits,
other.
these two bits of metal.
Magnets repel each other.
And, well, then, what does that mean, or why are they doing that, or how are they doing it?
You're asking.
I must say, I think that's a perfectly reasonable question.
Of course,
to
it's a
ask.
reason. It's an excellent question. Okay. But the problem that you're asking, you see, when you ask why something happens, how does a person answer why something happens? For example, Aunt Minnie is in a hospital. Why? Because she went out and she slipped on the ice and broke her hip. That satisfies it, people. It satisfies, but it wouldn't satisfy someone who came from another planet, knew nothing about things. First, you understand why, when you break your hip, do you go to the hospital? How do you get to the hospital when the hip was broken? Well, because her husband, seeing that she had the hip was broken, called the hospital up and sent somebody to get her. All that is understood by people. Now, when you explain a why, you have to be in some framework that you allow something to be true. Otherwise, you're perpetually asking why. Why did the husband call up the hospital? Because husband is interested in his wife's welfare. Not always. Some husbands aren't interested in their wife's welfare when they're drunk and they're angry. And so you begin to get a very interesting understanding of the world and all its complications. In order to if you try to follow anything up, you go deeper and deeper in various directions. If, for example, you could go, why did she slip on the ice? Well, ice is slippery. Everybody knows that, no problem. But you ask, why is ice slippery? That's kind of curious. Ice is extremely slippery. It's very interesting. You say, how does it work? You could either say, I'm satisfied that you've answered me, ice is slippery, that explains it. Or you could go on and say, why is ice slippery? And then you're involved with something, because there aren't many things as slippery as ice. It's very hard to get. Greasy stuff, but that's sort of wet and slimy. But a solid that's so slippery, Because it is in the case of ice that when you stand on it, they say, momentarily the pressure melts the ice a little bit, so you got a sort of instantaneous water surface on which you're slipping. Why on ice and not on other things? Because ice expands water expands when it freezes, so the pressure tries to undo the expansion and melts it. It's capable of melting it. But other substances contract when they're freezing, and when you push them, they're just satisfied to be solid. Why does water expand when it freezes and other substances don't expand when they freeze? All right? I'm not answering your question, but I'm telling you how difficult a why question is. You have to know what it is that you're permitted to understand and allowed to be understood and known, and what it is you're not. You'll notice in this example that the more I ask why, it gets interesting after all. That's my idea, that the deeper a thing is, the more interesting it is. And we could even go further and say, why did she fall down when she slipped? That has to do with gravity. It involves in all the planets and everything else. Never mind. It goes on and on. Now, when you ask, for example, why two magnets repel, there are many different levels. It depends on whether you're a student of physics or an ordinary person who doesn't know anything or not. If you're somebody who doesn't know anything at all about it, all I can say is that there's a magnetic force that makes them repel, and that you're feeling that force. And you say, but that's very strange, because I don't feel kind of force like that in other circumstances. When you turn them the other way, they attract. There's a very analogous force, electrical force, which is the same kind of a question. And you say, that's also very weird. But you're not at all disturbed by the fact that when you put your hand on the chair, it pushes you back. But we found out by looking at it that that's the same force, as a matter of fact, the electrical force, not magnetic exactly in that case, but it's the same electrical repulsions that are involved in keeping your finger away from the chair, because everything's made out of its electrical forces in microscopic details. There's other forces involved, but it's connected to electrical forces. It turns out that the magnetic and the electric force with which I wish to explain these things, this repulsion in the first place, is what ultimately is the deeper thing that we have to start, what we can start with, to explain many other things that looked like they were, everybody would just accept them. You know, you can't put your hand through the chair, that's taken for granted. But that you can't put your hand through the chair, when looked at more closely, why? It involves these same repulsive forces that appear in magnets. The situation you then have to explain is why in magnets it goes over a bigger distance than in ordinarily. And there it has to do with the fact that in iron, all the electrons are spinning in the same direction. They all get lined up, and they magnify the effect of the force until it's large enough at a distance that you can feel it. But it's a force which is present all the time and very common, and is in a basic force of almost, I mean, I can go a little further back if I were more technical, but at an early level, I just have to tell you that's going to be one of the things you'll just have to take as an element in the world, the existence of magnetic repulsion, or electrical attraction, magnetic attraction. I can't explain that attraction in terms of anything else that's familiar to you. For example, if we say the magnets attract like as if they were connected by rubber bands, I would be cheating you. Because they're not connected by rubber bands, I shouldn't be in trouble. You'd soon ask me about the nature of the band. And secondly, if you were curious enough, you'd ask me why rubber bands tend to pull back together again, and I would end up explaining that in terms of electrical forces, which are the very things that I'm trying to use the rubber bands to explain. So I have cheated very badly, you see. So I'm not going to be able to give you an answer to why magnets attract each other, except to tell you that they do. And to tell you that that's one of the elements in the world of the different kinds of forces. There are electrical forces, magnetic forces, gravitational forces, and others. And those are some of the parts. If you were a student, you'd go further. I could go further. I could tell you that the magnetic forces are related to the electrical forces very intimately. That our relationship between the gravity forces and electrical forces remains unknown, and so on. But I really can't do a good job, any job, of explaining magnetic force in terms of something else that you're more familiar with, because I don't understand it in terms of anything else that you're more familiar with.
Wow, dumpster. He just spent like an hour calling like a fucking moron. How mad do you think he is? Are you able to make a phone call? What do you mean? A lot of phone service companies are down? Wait, why is everything going down right now? Oh god. Wait, why is... Dan, are you here?
Yeah, what's up?
Why is everything going down right now? What's going on, bud?
I have no idea. You're going to hard mode with the medium core character first? Yeah, basically I'm trying to just clear content with my single player account behind my medium core character. What do you need the walls for? Because it looks better. And because it triggers chat apparently. It's actually crazy how Dems can flip like 7 Senate seats this year. I mean, like, the last, like, 6 months have basically been a godsend for the Democratic Party. Like, this is about, like... even the most cynical of Democrats on the devastation of, like, Election Day, if you would honestly ask, like, is the nation really going to be as fucked as you think it will be under Trump thing? Probably not. He'll probably try to erode some, like, LGBT shit using executive orders. Maybe he'll try to push some fuck legislation that won't get that much support in Congress, like, whatever. But, like, we're literally, like... Oh, Jesus. This is the guy from the show or whatever.
So, something classical, but also fairly short. Didn't want to bore you.
One of the talent
a shooting star. I will go the distance. I will search the world. I will face its harms. I don't care how far. I can go the distance until I find my road to welcome waiting in your arms.
After I beat the Goblin Invasion,
I find my
the Goblin dude should show up soon, right?
waiting in your
Oh, I have to find him underground. God damn it.
Thank you very much, everyone. I've
Wait.
been Jonathan Antoine. It's a pleasure. Yeah, good luck to everybody. Yeah, good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Jonathan Antoine. That is Jonathan Antoine. Jonathan, where can they find you on Twitch, or do you want to shout out anything else?
Full name, Jonathan Antoine on Twitch, John Antoine on most everything else. If you Google my name, you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Have a wonderful day. Give it up for Jonathan, everybody. Jonathan Antoine. Amazing, 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 amazing performance. Take care, Jonathan.
You too.
Take flight.
Welcome,
You're a fucking
ladies and gentlemen.
statistician.
Almost became a
Demons,
filthy
yeah, I should
white
probably
named
find something else.
Disustany
Welcome, ladies and
ECH.
gentlemen, while I figure out a new song to play in the intro. We have a new production value. Twitch is completely broken on the absolute worst day possible. This is the worst day possible Twitch could break. It's the talent show. We were supposed to be on the front page. Notifications didn't work, but you guys are here, so thank you very much. Welcome to the Austin show. Thank you. Welcome. That's right. We've had a name change, but it's okay. It's the same show that you know and love, just under a new name. Welcome to the talent show, the Austin Talent Show. Sponsored by G Fuel, exclamation point G Fuel in the chat. You can get 30% off with code Austin in the chat. Let me just take a sip of absolutely delicious. Exclamation point G Fuel in the chat. That's right there, the title sponsor of today's show. Give big hearts up for G Fuel in the chat. Commands are, a lot of things are broken right now, but we're trying to get it all fixed. The show must go on. Welcome to the Talent Show. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have an all-new setup. Everything is new. Like, it's all new. Like, it's incredible. I've never, ever had a setup like this before. I've got, look at this transition. I'm just going to go, we're going to look at that. This has never existed. Look at that. Look at how cool. Oh, there's Jonathan. We're back to Jonathan. Look, it's unbelievable. It's crazy. I've got a new computer. I don't know if you guys can see this. Let me move this. Let me move some of this stuff over here so you guys don't see it. But I've got a new computer. It's hard to see. I don't. Look at that. Look at that new PC. I got to. Let's see if we can get a camera inside. Look at this. Check out the interior. Look at that GeForce RTX 2080. Amazing PC. We actually have hyper.
Okay. Well, tune into that later, depending on what's going on. All he needs is a new camera. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that he spent so much money, or not, it's probably sponsored, but it's kind of crazy that he got all that crazy shit, but not like a good camera. That's like the one thing that's actually relevant to his shit. Hold on one sec. We're gonna chat with our best friend again.
Hello.
What's up, bud? How's it going?
It's going good. There's just like a couple of things I wanted to talk about our last conversation. I would start with the whole idea that earlier when we were talking about civil rights and about people being able to get the right to vote, you said the majority populace like consensus or whatever at that point in time was around like 58% of people. So, you know, theoretically, like those constituents, those legislators would do whatever their constituents wanted, right? That was your argument?
Whatever populist supporters at the time, I'd imagine, yeah.
Yeah, so I remember asking you specifically if that poll was about just like general populist consensus or if it was about voting consensus specifically. And your answer was like voting consensus, like 58% of voters basically.
Oh, I don't know if it was voters, and I don't know if Gallup can poll only voters or whatever.
Because that was something I searched up afterwards, and it was just populist, right? So
Probably,
the reason why I asked you that last time we were talking was because, hey, it goes back to the original argument, or I guess like the original stuff I was talking about, that people, yes, legislators, politicians would want to do whatever is in their constituents' best favor. Specifically, they tend to favor those that obviously vote for them. However, you have certain scenarios where they are, where their constituents might not want them to do the moral or right thing, or where the popular opinion there is like, at least locally, oh no, like you shouldn't do X or Y thing, even though it's the most moral thing. So for example, in the South, a lot of local legislators, a lot of states were not in favor of giving Black people voting rights, or for desegregation, or for anything like that. But when you started getting a change in the federal level, when people started protesting and putting more pressure on like state and federal level change, that's when you started getting a local change, literally, by brute force, basically.
You realize that the literal thing you're talking about, literally what happened is we had a civil war, right? Like, if push comes to shove, I know that you're not in this particular case, but I'm saying, like, if you're talking about shoving really hard at the federal level and the individual citizens aren't okay with it, then you get a civil war. That's where that came from.
I'm sorry, was a civil right? I was not aware that the civil rights movement was a civil war. My bad.
Well, no, but like by the time the general sentiment about Black people in the United States, because you keep mixing up like things like voting rights or whatever, or things like I guess like the general sentiment of Black people, like it's changed quite a bit throughout human history, right? Or through U.S. history, right?
It's not a black and white subject, so people might care about, or maybe people might think, yeah, like I don't mind if like Blacks can vote or whatever, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be the make or break deal for them when it comes to voting, right? So they could have two candidates, one in favor of giving Black people the right to vote, the other one not, but they're going to vote for the person who's not because they agree with other policies from that person. It's not just a black and white thing.
Yeah, of course. It might not be a single issue. I'm just saying that, yeah, of course you can find, like, there's going to be a variety of issues where you might not get the perfect politician or whatever that aligns with you on everything, and you might be a single issue voter or something else. Yeah, of course this happens, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it was going back to what I was saying before, that we've had various moments where federal or legislative change from top level has affected bottom level politics. That this is something that's happened like historically. It's something that happened with suffragettes. It's something that happened with
I've never
civil
disagreed.
rights.
Of course, federal level policy impacts local level policy. It can, of course.
Okay.
Obviously, yeah.
Okay, because earlier when we were like talking about like change bottom up or like protests and like pressuring like the federal government, or at least like maybe we were like talking past each other, I guess, or pressuring like state legislators, that still does like have an ongoing effect, right? Even if it's, I agree that at the end of the day, like people should still vote in their local and state elections, absolutely. But it's this idea that like protesting, even if it doesn't get the change you want immediately, it will like eventually get the change or push for the change that you want. That has a very real world impact that's really important.
As long as people go out and vote, yeah.
Yeah, but the point, I guess, absolutely 100% people should go out and vote. I will never like specify this enough. Like I will always repeat it. People should go out and vote. But it's a whole idea that I guess, and maybe it's just a semantics issue, that, oh no, like downplaying the importance of protesting. Because maybe that's
protesting is important because it could get people out to vote. I'm not downplaying the importance of protesting. I just don't like protesters downplay the importance of voting. Without voters, protests would be nothing. They would mean nothing, and they would accomplish nothing.
Yeah, but yes and no, right? Because yes, the biggest change that you're ever going to get at the end of the day is through the legislator. But our two biggest movements when it came to getting people to have equal rights, to be able to have the opportunity to vote, was literally through protests, not through voters.
Okay, how did people get the right to vote? Did they just show up and enough people were protesting and then all of a sudden they got the right to vote? Or was there an amendment that was passed in Congress that codified it in legislation that via the 15th Amendment that actually gave them the right to vote, right?
Why did that amendment go through Congress in the first place? Why was it brought up as an issue? Why was it even there? It was because people were out protesting.
You're misunderstanding me. You're misunderstanding me. I don't know why. Protesting is valuable insofar as it pushes real legislative change. That's it. That's the full story. Protesting is valuable insofar as it gets people out to like vote on politicians. If people don't vote or if legislation doesn't follow, the protests mean nothing. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
So when you're protesting or advocating for protesting and people are saying things like, oh, voting doesn't work, voting blah, 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 then your protest is pointless. Then you've accomplished nothing. If you're actively discouraging people from voting, which I would consider you are, if you're saying things like voting doesn't matter, voting doesn't work, that's why we're protesting.
Okay.
That's my whole point.
I've never said that.
Okay, sure.
But no, I get what you're talking about. Because just earlier I was like kind of confused because it seemed like, and this is just, I guess, like an optics issue that I got or whatever. It seemed like you were saying like, oh no, protesting is not like nearly as important as voting, and it's like no, they're both really, really important. They're both like huge things. It's true, like they're basically, I guess, like kind of like live off each other in a sense that we want protests out. We want people to understand like a bigger message.
Yeah, that gets people out voting. Sure, yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. There was one other conversation I wanted to have with you about, and it was about like two arguments you've used with me in the past that I don't think like are very good. So I just like I wanted to go over them. Sure. The first one that you've mentioned to me like a couple of times is, oh, nobody thinks that way, or nobody views it that way. And I understand like I guess like an appeal of using that argument, but to me that, at least personally, like if you're trying to sway me or maybe in the future, it's not a really good argument because great. I don't know who's like the epicenter of like normalcy.
Wait, what is this in regards to? I guess, or like what? Do you remember what?
Fuck. I think one was the Reed conversation, and I think one was the last conversation we had also. That I guess like yeah, the defunding the police. That nobody, when they read defund the police, they think move out funds from the police. They only think abolish the police.
Well, yeah, it seems to be I'm basing this, I guess, on Twitter threads and other politicians that have spoken about this. There seems to be a lot of confusion about what defund the police actually means. I wish I could remember which big lefty. Some guy posted or something like, "Oh, when we say defund the police, we don't mean this thing." And the whole in the following thread were people arguing over what it actually meant. And then you've got some politicians like Bernie Sanders that have explicitly come out and said, "Well, no, we don't want to defund the police." So it seems to be that even like mainstream like politician talk, there is a lot of confusion over what it actually means. I guess that's what I'm going off of when I say there's confusion.
Which is why like you can argue that it's not the best argument like optically to use. But I would make like an argument similar like when Black Lives Matter first came out, a lot of people were like, what do you mean like Black Lives Matter? Does that mean that white lives don't matter? Like what the fuck? Like why are you saying only Black Lives Matter? Why not all lives matter? And it's only after having like continuous discussion that was able to change. Now these aren't identical situations.
Sure, yeah, wait, so real quick. So this is an argument that people use a lot. So the two other variations of this argument I've heard are, well, capitalism wasn't perfect when it first started, so socialism isn't perfect, and maybe it'll be good too. Or basically the generalized form of this argument is, well, X thing failed in the past and then X thing succeeded, therefore everything that has failed in the past can succeed. This does not logically follow, right? Like I could use the same argument to say, oh, like I'm starting a new movement. It's called Rape the Police. And it's like, wait, what the fuck? And it's like, oh, well, no. If you actually look up like the definition of rape, like rape and pillage can mean to like take from something or to like defund something. So when I say rape the police, what I really mean is like take away their budgets for their militarized weapons. And you're like, well, what the fuck? Well, no, listen. Now I know you think that's crazy, but in the past people said Black Lives Matter. All lives matter, right? But we had to explain to them,
okay.
Right?
I'm sorry to cut you in.
So
Okay, I'll let you
defund
go.
and abolish have very specific meanings that aren't being used when people say like defund the police or abolish. Like it's a bad. It doesn't make sense. It's not like explaining like Black Lives Matter means Black Lives Matter too or whatever, because nothing in Black Lives Matter inherently says that like, well, all lives don't matter or white lives don't matter, right? It's Black Lives Matter too. Whereas defund the police or abolish the police, abolish and defund have specific meanings that people understand, and when you say those, it's really fucking confusing.
Yeah, no. I would argue that abolish and defund the police are two radically different positions, right? Abolish is literally like, oh, to take away the police. Defund is like, oh, to stop like sending as many funds or stop like receiving as much funds as before, right? When we talk about like defunding programs, we're not just saying like, okay, cancel the program like the next day, right? That's not the end goal here. So maybe it is just like a difference of perception thing, because I honestly think like when I hear defund the police, I don't think abolish the police. If I was going to think abolish the police, I would just use the slogan abolish the police.
I guess like for me, like there's already words in the English language that like perfectly encapsulate this, and it's just reform the police. Like it fits perfectly. It describes exactly what we would want to do, and there's no confusion over like whether you want to defund them or abolish them. Like it.
Yeah, the idea is that the whole idea of like, I guess the argument of like defunding the police, or even the slogan talks about like police budgets and whether we should continue to have them in the scale that they have now. Where is the money exactly going? Is it going to like programs that it should be going to, or is it being spent on money that we agree is like a populace is kind of like fruitless or harmful in the long run? So this like little hashtag, this little word itself has created a whole new conversation about police budgets that wasn't really there before or wasn't really focused on before. When you say reform the police, it's like, yes, I completely agree with you. But how are we going to reform the police?
We don't know if that same conversation wouldn't have happened otherwise in the wake of everything. And also, like,
I mean,
when people
we can say it follows, right?
No, we
can
can't.
say
No, like there's a lot of stuff going on right now that's not just hashtags on Twitter. That's like encouraging the conversation to happen. Like the role that police should play in society is like a really big conversation topic right now. I don't think we can give even 2% of the credit of that to hashtag abolish or hashtag defund the police.
I'm not just saying like a hashtag on Twitter, right? Obviously, these are chants, these are protests, these are things that are brought out to the fucking street. They don't just stay in like in the Twitter.
And reform the police works just as well. The idea that defund
that's
means
what I'm saying.
like
It's a specialized conversation. When you say reform the police, you can talk about oversight committees, you can talk about de-escalation training. Funding is like a more specific issue of this about how are we going to get this money and where is this money exactly going to?
I understand all of that. I'm just saying that like when you say defund, that is a very specific meaning that's even understood in contemporary American politics. When the Republicans talk about defunding Planned Parenthood, they're not talking about reallocating money to other types of women's reproductive services. They're talking about axing the program. When people talk about defunding the EPA or getting rid of government, like these words have very specific meanings. Even Clyburn has statements where he says defund is stupid. It's a stupid way to describe things. This is like one of the leading black congressmen. Like I mean, it's really fucking confusing.
Yeah, usually when people talk, well, at least like from what and maybe this is just from what I've heard from like Republicans and shit, when they're saying like defund the police, defund like Planned Parenthood. If you like press them on that, some of them are like, oh yes, we want to get rid of Planned Parenthood, and then other ones are like, oh, we just don't want them to have like the monetary like access to perform abortion. I mean, this is something I literally like Googled earlier today just to make sure. If you search up defund police, you see news article after news article after news article after news article after news article talking about like what does exactly mean, going through like nuances of it, which is exactly what we should want in a conversation about this, right?
I don't want to argue about what the slogan means. I want to argue about what it means to do it.
But I'm not the slogan. It's arguing about like police budgets in particular.
Yeah, but a lot of the conversation
where is this money going?
A lot of the conversation,
like, where should it be going?
This is like Twitter activism, my dude. Like
this is literally like Atlantic, CNN, MSNBC.
So from Clyburn, for me, the word defund means what Merriam-Webster says that it means. Clyburn said. So if you're talking about reallocating resources, say that. If you mean reimagining policing, say that. If you're going to reform policing,
I'm not talking about the optics of the situation. I'm talking about like the conversation, like the freaking conversation.
We could just call it reform the police, and then we could have less wasted conversation on what does that mean, rather than going to defund or abolish.
The idea, if we didn't talk about like funding the police to begin with, we wouldn't be talking about like where should these resources be allocated, or like where is like police funding using. If you literally like
wait, no. This is where you're you're totally wrong. The
Wait, what do you mean?
hashtag defund the police has nothing to do with the current conversation going on. It was the murder of George Floyd that was caught on camera that everybody's protesting. The fact that people
obviously George Floyd died, and then a bunch of other movements came out of.
You keep saying yes and agree with me after I explicitly disagree with what you just said. So explicitly
Okay,
prior to this.
fine.
Okay.
I'm literally going to explicitly explain to you what's going on.
Sure, wait,
George
so explain
Floyd died,
explain
yes
the
or
statement.
no?
Yes. No, explain the statement. You explicitly just said that we're having these conversations because of like hashtag defund the police, because we're using those words.
Yes, okay, yes.
Wait, so how can you agree with that when I just...
Let me
Okay,
fucking
go.
finish the sentence, okay?
Okay, go for it.
George Floyd dies. Yes or no? Did that happen? George Floyd died.
Yeah, was murdered, yes.
Yes, he was murdered. He was brutally murdered. Okay, people started protesting Black Lives Matter. Yes or no? That happened.
Yes.
Okay, as a result of George Floyd's brutal murder, as a result of Black Lives Matter gaining popularity, rising, people have now talked about reforming the police. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, came out of that conversation about reforming the police or things that we should do with the police, one of those things that's a result of that is defunding the police. That is a conversation that has sprouted out like 3 layers afterwards. Yes or no? Yeah. So when I say like, oh, it follows like George Floyd's death, it's because, hey,
we're not talking about it follows from George Floyd's death. You were talking specifically if it follows from the rhetoric of defund the police. We don't disagree that all of this follows from George Floyd's death, of course.
Yes. Wait, then why were you saying like, oh no, it specifically doesn't come out of that? I was
Because
like,
we're specific. Because we're not. Because this
We were not-
conversation had nothing to do with whether or not George Floyd's death led to these conversations. Of course it did. Nobody here disagrees with that. The question is whether
you
or not.
literally just told me that this has nothing to do with George Floyd's death. Or
No,
it's
I
not
said that the
connected.
current conversation didn't necessarily come from hashtag defund the police. That it could have just as easily been reform the police and the conversation would be more productive rather than getting lost in this what does defund or abolish mean.
I mean, yes, you could make that argument that like, oh no, the conversation about police budgets would still come out, but without hashtag defund the police or without like people like chanting this shit or whatever. Which yes, but I would also push back on that and say that, hey, you know what? People like chanting this in specific, people like bringing up this like specific terminology that's like very eye-jarring, that's very eye-catching, probably does contribute to the conversation.
It's contributing to a dumb fucking conversation. If I Google Bernie Sanders defund the police, here's the articles I get. Bernie Sanders should embrace the demand to defund the police. New York Post. Bernie Sanders doesn't support defunding the police. Tobias Hoonhunt from Post Gazette. Bernie doesn't want to defund the police. From Axios.com. Bernie Sanders pushes back into the idea of abolishing the police. Fox Business. Sanders rejects this man. Holy shit, what a bunch of wasted fucking conversation to appease a bunch of fucking Twitter lefties. Why not just call it reform the police and everybody is on board with it?
This is just Twitter. Why do you think this is just like fucking Twitter lefties? Twitter's lefties is like a fucking like microscope of what's going
Because
on.
I don't know
outside.
why
People
you would-
are
because
chanting outside.
this is the- this
like,
is-
you're literally equating like
this is such an
every protest
easy-
when people are like defund the police or when people are talking about police
This
budgets
is such
to
an
like an extreme little
because
fringe
this
online
is such
lefty
an
group. What the
easy
fuck?
conversation. The easy common sense answer here is, oh yeah, defund and abolish the police. Those are fucking stupid terms.
Well,
We
they're
should
not
just
the
call it
same
reform.
terms. That's the
They're
point.
being
They're not
used
the same
interchangeably by
terminology.
everybody.
Some
Everybody's.
people are not
Oh my
everybody,
God.
because when you
And
literally
this is
go
where-
after article, I'll go through literally every fucking article right now saying what does it actually mean to defund the police, and people explaining and like news sources saying it. We can go through MSNBC, CNN right now, Washington Post, and I will literally go through every single one of them where they go like in fucking depth about where like police budgets are going to, like what are protesters meaning when they say defund the police, like different consensus on that. And yes, it is something that's kind of divisive because hey, you know what? It's a fucking social change. It's a social issue. Like that is the whole point of like,
You
having
keep
like, slogans like
conflating
this.
the two. In one, you're conflating the very real fight that black people have against the cops, and in two, and then you're conflating that with your desire to defend the most like abrasive terminology that is so confusing in the world.
I'm saying terminology itself.
No,
when it first
hold on.
comes out,
You
is
just
pretty
mixed up.
fucking
No, you
abrasive
keep
when it has to do with social
trying to
change.
tie.
Absolutely.
You keep trying to tie in abolish and defund the police with the larger movement, right? When you go, well, of course it's divisive.
Well,
We're
I'm
talking
not
about big
saying
social
abolish.
change. No.
I'm
Hold
saying
on. You keep saying
you're equating both of them. When
no,
I'm saying
you're the one that's
specifically
equating them.
not.
You keep saying, of course this is divisive. It's big social change. No. Calling it abolish or defund, that's not the big social change. It's supposed to be divisive. The divisive part is arguing over how should we reform the police.
No, yeah, okay, yeah. the divisive part is how should we reform the police?
But
And
instead,
it's
the
a
divisive
result
part
of
has come
that.
over. What do we call it? Do we call it abolish or defund or reform?
But they're not the same fucking thing. That's the point.
But people,
Defunding
everybody,
specifically
nobody knows
focuses
it.
on police budgets.
Even
When you say
Trump,
abolish
even
the police,
Trump.
the conversation becomes like just okay.
Oh
just
my God.
like what happens when we press okay? If you're gonna be like, oh my God, then I don't know what we're gonna talk
No,
about.
like even that. The problem is you're arguing rhetoric. Like even Trump is tweeting out. Many Democrats want to defund and abolish the police department. You're acting like everybody is coming into this with their fucking dictionaries and wiki articles and like, oh yes, of course I understand these. Let's have a reasonable discussion. It's not. This is like political ammo that's just being slung around now, like by all sides. It's such a stupid way, and it's so disrespectful to the actual conversation that needs to happen of how do we reform our police departments.
That's going. Yeah, it's talking about police reform, and one of those things is police budgets. They're not separate. Part of police reform is talking about where is the money going when it comes to like a police budget.
Yes,
And
but
I
you
think
don't
can
have to
a
use
general-
using the word defund doesn't mean reallocation of budget to
It's
people.
about the funds, right? It's all
Oh my
specifically
God.
about where is the money going. But that's
not
literally-
what that
that's literally where
means. No, that's nobody uses that word that way, Pixie, ever.
No one when people are talking about defund, you're saying people don't talk about like moving funds. away
No,
from the
never,
police.
never, ever, never, ever, never, ever. No, never. What I just said never happens in mainstream political discourse. When a politician talks about defunding something, they are explicitly talking about axing that program. Watch any Republican debate. Watch any Democratic debate. When people talk about defunding the military, are they talking about reallocating it to other parts of the No, even you, when you have said in the past, I guarantee you, I will put my fucking life on the line right now, that if I go back in your VOD, at some point you've used the expression defund the military. You're not talking about taking that money and reallocating it to other parts of the military. You're probably talking about using it to pay for social health care. 100 billion%. You don't have to agree or disagree. I know I'm right there. Anytime, wait, I know for a fact you said that. Are you going to disagree with me?
No, I agree.
100%. And when Trump talks about defunding the EPA, when he did it multiple times in his debates, and he got questioned on it by people like Wallace, when people talk about defunding the EPA, are they talking about allocating that money to other green energy, to other like environmental protective
Well, yeah,
forces?
not everybody uses it the same exact like fucking way.
No,
That's
everybody
what kind
does
of
use it the same way.
language is,
When
right?
they say
Not everybody uses
defund,
it
no,
the
they
same
all
exact
use it the
fucking-
same way. When they say defund, they mean take money away from that program so that it fails. That's what defund means in a political sense. When you defund something, you're taking money away from it so the program fails.
Okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is that obviously like thousands of people don't mean it in that specific context, especially when you go to like every fucking article that oh, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Especially when you go to like every fucking article talking about it and expanding on like police budgets and like where is the money going to specifically. So I don't know, to me this is an argument that's going to go around in circles because I'm saying
This
like,
is-
hey, you
so
know what,
do you
not everybody
acknowledge
thinks
that-
about it that way? Like look online, look
Do
at
you
CNN,
acknowledge that there is
MSNBC,
al- do you
Washington Post talking about like, hey, you know what, like this is what the terminology actually means, or let's talk about police budgets, or why are like people like fucking chanting this? Let's go into the specifics about it. Now you can say optically it's not the best because people will use it as a way to like fire back, right? People use it as a way of saying like, oh, look, you see, they just want to like abolish the police or whatever. But I would say that like, and maybe I'm just being a super ultra fucking pessimist here, almost anything, any terminology you use is going to be found as a way to like fucking throw back a fire at you, right? So for example,
You're doing the thing. We should just call it rape all police. Anything is going to be used to throw back at you. Anything's going to be used. Just call it rape all police. Like, why not?
But that's what I'm saying. There's a fucking sliding scale here.
No,
which
there's
is why I would
not.
say yes, I would. That's why there's a difference. Why there's a reason why you're saying reform the police and not the same thing as abolish police, or defunding police and not the same thing as abolishing police. Words have-
Representative Clyburn, to today's
for that.
activists, don't let quote unquote defund the police hijack new momentum for reform. I can't believe that like you would defend this. Like,
well, okay, but the fucking thing I'm defending is that, hey, you know what? Like, this means things to, like, different people, and not everybody's taking it the same way. It's like abolishing police, okay? Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a very, like, fucking controversial statement to say, like, hey, you know, the conversation that has come out of, like, defunding the police.
no, it didn't come out of defunding the police. It came out of George Floyd being killed. Stop trying to take credit for it because you're using a hashtag.
George Floyd being killed. I already fucking established this timeline for you. Okay, George Floyd being killed, which then led to Black Lives Matter, which then led to police reform. And I guess like, if you want me to be
Nothing
like,
about the conversation has come from quote unquote defund the police. It's all come from George Floyd being killed and then the subsequent.
You already admitted that this is like a fucking subset of like police reform that came out of Black Lives Matter, that came out because like fucking like George Floyd died. Like, what?
If the defund the police had never existed, the conversation would be better off for it.
Okay. I don't know how you can quantify
Sure.
that,
Number one. So here's two key questions. Number one, is this quote or is this word, abolish or defund the police, is it causing confusion?
It's not the same thing. Yes, it's causing confusion.
Yes,
just
okay,
like
cool, okay, that's it. Okay, so either of those, defund or abolish police, are causing confusion, okay? Number 2, would we be having a conversation about reforming police departments had these two hashtag words never existed?
Yes, but we wouldn't be specifically focusing probably on funding, okay?
What do you mean? First of all, funding doesn't even fucking matter. That's not even the most important part of the conversation. Firstly,
it's still an important part
it's
of the
not. It means
conversation.
nothing.
Might not be the
Funding means
most.
nothing. No, funding is not an important part.
What the fuck are you saying funding doesn't matter? It does matter when you have police becoming like more and more fucking militarized.
Oh, so militarization. That's something that might matter. What else?
Okay, wait. That you are you for like wait, fuck, what I was gonna say. You just said like, okay, yeah, that does matter. Like, I'm so confused. If we acknowledge
funding,
that, hey,
just money, talking about like getting rid of money from things is an easy answer that requires no brain power, that sounds good but means nothing. If I were to defund the police, if I were to remove half the budget from the police and all else stayed the same, you know what would change? Absolutely nothing. They'd still be out killing people. They'd still be doing shitty police work. There'd still be institutional bias against black people. That reform is nothing. It means nothing to just defund something. You have to actually move in and actually like institute new policies in a police department if you actually want things changed.
I'm not saying that that's the only thing you have to do. I've never said, hey, that's the only thing you have to do.
But I'm saying it means nothing.
That it does mean something.
Do you think the Camden Police Department did a good job for all the people that cite that shit or whatever? That Camden did a good job disbanding their police force?
I don't know specifics of that case.
Okay,
I do
it's
know
the one
though,
that everybody.
less money. Wait, I do know though that having like less money specifically going towards like buying like military grade weapons or maintaining them or like having the cost of operations on them. Like I do know that those things do lead to like demilitarization of police. For police, it's pretty like, straightforward.
How do you know that they won't just reallocate?
If police cannot afford military grade weapons, then why would they buy them?
Maybe they'll allocate money from some other part of the department. Maybe they'll take away time from investigating murders or something if they feel like they need the equipment.
Yes. Well, maybe. Yeah, maybe until like the meantime where, oh fuck, what I was going to say. Maybe until then, we should focus on creating like an oversight committee or that has like funding that we would otherwise put to the police to make sure that the resources are being adequately
so then what you're talking about has nothing to do with defunding and has everything to do with policies at the police department.
Well, it goes back to this idea of like, where the fuck are you gonna get the funding for like a third oversight committee? Where the fuck are you gonna get the money from that?
We don't need a third oversight committee. We have oversight. It's called the mayor.
Okay, but we know that the mayor hasn't been doing like a pretty damn good job.
The mayor's been doing a perfect job in relation to the people that vote for him.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying. We're saying like, hey, you know what? Like, first of all, there seems to be like a conflict of interest sometimes. The mayor also has to work in like police with things outside of what's like going on right now when it comes to like local crime, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't make sense to like piss off, even if like the majority of your constituents aren't police. We're going to put a theoretical here. If the majority of your constituents aren't police, they're just like average, ordinary citizens, it would still make sense as you, as a mayor, to have like good relations with the police department because of other things that they affect.
Not if the police department is losing you elections. Of course you'll fight with your special services if they end up fucking your shit up. Of course.
Okay, but as we know before, like, we don't live, like, in a perfect fucking democratic system. To you, like, your claim has been, like, okay, you know what? Like, a lot of people have voter apathy. They're not going to go out and vote. I claim, like, okay, I think voter apathy is definitely a real thing that happens. I also think that people feel disenfranchised or feel like their local vote doesn't matter. I think that these things are not always, like, contradictory to each other?
Are we just trying to like muddy the waters so much that like we can't make any solid arguments about anything? I don't understand. You're acting your original thesis here, the idea that the mayor is going to be loyal to the police department even if the police department is unpopular publicly. The reason why the mayor and the police department are so popular together is because old people love police officers. That's why that union has so much strength. If there are issues that come up, I mean the only thing I'm super intimately familiar with is in Omaha, when police union contracts came up for spiking pensions is a huge fucking thing that a lot of police departments do. That becomes really electorally unpopular. And sometimes attacking your police department can actually net you more votes, or saying you're going to reform something or take a harder stance on like different union contracts. I don't know if that's true across the country. I'm sure there are other examples of that. But like this idea that like the police and the mayor are always going to be together and friends and nothing is going to change. This is only true because the only people that go out and vote are old white people that vote for him.
Yes, okay. But I guess the point that I'm trying to get across is that this is going to go back in circles. But yes, mayors, people elected in power, often do what is most favorable to the constituents that voted for them. But what they ought to do is what's best for the population as a whole, right? It's what's best for the people as like a fucking whole. So if you're going to go and say like, oh no, like they're technically in the right or they're okay for doing that because like it's voters who have not gone out and shown like this is not okay. Okay, there's more than one way other than voting that shows like, hey, you know what, this is not okay. Now voting is the most effective way.
There's only
yes,
voting.
What we went from before, right? When we talked about like the suffragette movement, when we talk and voting, let me clarify now because I know everybody's gonna be like, oh, Pixie doesn't care about voting. No, voting is like the fucking most effective way you're gonna get shit done. But if we're gonna say like, okay, not enough people feel like motivated to go like fucking vote, or let's say that there's like disenfranchisement going on there or whatever it might be, the next logical step is protesting. Like that's it. And to say like, oh no, like protesting like won't affect anything, like if people don't go out and vote, it won't be as effective, but it still does create effects. And you see that when it comes to civil rights, and when you see that when it came to like the suffragettes movement, people who did not have like position of power to vote literally went out and protested and caused like civil unrest and caused like civil disobedience and was able to create like more change in public opinion. And not just that, but was able to put like pressure on legislators to create change that might have not been.
They did not put any pressure on legislators. Through their public protesting, they were able to get other men to change their mind to vote, and those were the ones that put pressure on legislators. No legislator is going to enact a ton of legislation that's all just going to cause them to get unelected. It's just not how politicians work.
You're making this like a black and white situation.
It is
right?
black and white. It's very black and white. Yes, it is.
No, it isn't, because not everybody's like a single issue voter. Because maybe like, oh, you know what? I don't like the fact that they gave like black people like voting rights.
I'm pretty sure around the time of women's suffrage, that was probably like the big issue that a lot of people were focused on. That would be my guess.
During the time of women's suffrage, or since the time that women were able to get their voting rights, I believe it was like around World War I or II. I think it was like 1917. Basically, like the historical reason why people claim that women were able to get the right to vote is because men were going off to war at this point in time.
Yeah, they needed to work and stuff.
Yeah, so women got like literally, I guess, like more political capital to be able to like sway more minds. It wasn't like, I don't want to say like, oh, a lot of men suddenly cared about like women's rights to vote. It wasn't necessarily like such a freaking big deal to them. It was more of a question of like, oh, you know, these women are out there loud and protesting, and we want to like, you know, seem like we're united in this time of war. So we might as well just give them what they want so they can like quiet down. It wasn't like you had like a shit ton of men suddenly being like, oh, you know what? Like, I'm really passionate about women's rights to vote. And
I don't understand what is the disagreement here?
Okay, I guess the disagreement here is the fact that protesting has, or how large of an effect protesting has when it comes to getting things done.
So protesting.
My argument to you,
we don't. I don't think we disagree here, unless you just fundamentally don't understand how government works. You understand that the only thing that changes like policies is actual legislation. It has to be codified into law, right?
Yeah.
Okay, wait, okay, hold on. Let's just walk all the way down, okay? You understand that law comes from legislators, right? And you understand that those legislators are elected officials, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then we don't disagree on anything. At the end of the day, it has to be a law. It has to be codified somewhere in the actual system. And that comes from elected people that people vote on.
Okay, but you do agree that, like, you know what, like, how do you call it? That you can pressure elected officials to create change, to pass through legislation through protest. Do you agree with that?
If by that you mean the protests influence the opinions of the voters, yes.
Okay, but I think we might have a disagreement here. But now I'm not sure.
Okay, here's a question. Do you think that a politician, if a ton of people protested in their city, and he would go ahead and push for an issue that he knew would lose him the election next cycle, do you think a politician would do that?
No, but a lot of these issues are not, like, I guess, lose.
Wait, okay, stop. Don't stop. Yeah, stop. Don't muddy the waters. So just.
I'm not muddying the waters.
Okay, you are. You're making it more complicated than it needs to be. So let's say
it is complicated.
No, not this. No, not this particular thing. Okay, this is just we'll say it's a one-issue election. Okay, on a one-issue election, if there are protests in a city and a politician is going to push for those changes, let's say that they know none of their voters are going to agree with it, but there are protesters that do agree with it. Would that politician push that legislative change? Yes or no?
No, if the majority of voters, or if there's specific voting block won't.
So if there might be multi-issues coming up in a city where different people and blah 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 different issues, but the general gist is that if you're going to lose a lot of votes by doing something, you're probably not going to do it. That's generally how it works in a democratically elected body. That's probably how it should work in a democratically elected body.
Okay. The point that I was trying to get at earlier, that I guess like for you is muddying the waters, I'm trying to be as clear as I can here, is like, hey, okay, take civil rights. This might have not been I'm not going to vote for you issue if you're not necessarily.
Yeah, I understand.
going to
You're mudding it by saying like, well, maybe there's 7 different issues and they're just protesting for one that's like 5th on the list, and then that one will be pushed through.
But that's how real life works.
Not on the huge issues like this. Like the way that real life works is oftentimes you only have so much political capital to push through like 1 or 2 like big changes. Like usually you can't do every single fucking thing you want to, and if you try to do too much, you'll often get punished for it. So for instance, you talk about how that 1994 crime bill was so bad. It was bad. It was bad for Democrats because they pushed through the assault weapons ban, and it caused them to have unprecedented losses in Congress afterwards because they pushed for too much change. The assault weapons ban part of that crime bill lost so many Democratic seats because Democrats in vulnerable districts voted for it. So like that's one example of like trying to push for too much or trying to have too much in like a legislative change. Or arguably, I wouldn't say Obama lost on the ACA. There are other things going on in that time. But like if you try to get every single issue done, like as a politician, you have like, this is when I interview Congress people, whatever, I ask them this, right? Like what are your 2 or 3 big issues you're trying to get done? Because everybody knows that when you go to Congress, you don't have 35 different things and you're going to go and do everything else, knock out your entire fucking list. Like you typically have a few issues that you can focus on, and those are going to be the big ones that you like prioritize when you talk to your voters.
Yeah. Wait, I don't know where we disagree now, because I'm saying like, okay, yeah, no, like that's absolutely
well, because
true.
you're presenting me this weird world where like, okay, well, everybody's going to go and protest, but it's not going to be the main issue that people are going to vote on. But the goal is that they're going to vote on candidates whose like 4th or 5th issue is going to be this thing that they're going to try to. That's what you're arguing.
My argument is like, hey, you know what? Like people do have issues that they care about and that are higher on the priority list. But because at the end of the day, we live like in a fucking like I guess like in a 2-party system, or when we only really at the end of the day have like 2 candidates going against each other. What happens when you have 2 candidates who are like, okay, you know what? We don't want to do police reform, at least like not on this local level, because we're afraid like the police union won't vote for us. So we're not going to do it. Then what do? Okay, you keep protesting. You go to legislator, you go to like federal level so that they'll enact change like from bottom down.
The legislators are going to do what their voters want. I don't understand what we disagree with.
But no, okay, but that's the thing. Okay, like, yes, legislators are going to do what their voters want, obviously. Yes, okay, absolutely. But you have certain times in history where people are not able to vote, where people don't have the ability to vote, but their rights are still being taken away. They're still being hurt. And therefore, like, it makes sense to, like, have protests, like, on a federal or, like, local or state level or whatever to create that change and to enact that change. It's going to happen through other voters, absolutely. Like, other people will also start being like, hey, you know what? I relate with this cause. I'm going to go vote for it. But it's also going to end up pressuring, like, senators, depending how your protest is, right? It's going to end up pressuring like senators themselves to be like, okay, we see like a lot of people like angry. We don't want them to keep on being
so
angry.
Do you think that senators themselves are looking at the number of people protesting and are just ignoring the people voting for them? Or do you think they take both into account? Or do you think they just look at how is this going to impact the people voting for me?
Wait, can you repeat that question? Sorry,
do you think that senators are getting this information and they're like, oh, well, okay, I'm just going to pay attention to the protest now and ignore like my voter base? Or I don't understand.
No. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to try to explain this through a different lens. In the poll that you sent me about civil rights popularity, it is fair to say that like, hey, okay, 58% of the general populace, of the general populace was for civil rights, right? They were for that. However, that amount or the percentage of people who could vote from that is not very clear statistic, okay? I wouldn't be surprised if like a large number of that percentage were, you know, Black people who are in favor or other minorities that were in favor of civil rights, but who did not have the means to vote, okay?
Oh, okay, hold on. So you think that at the time, you think that my polling was misleading? You think that actually it was a very a slim minority of voters were in favor of civil rights?
I didn't say a slim minority.
Okay, then stop implying and say what do you think?
Okay, yeah. What I'm saying is that, like, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if over 8% of that poll was like Black people who are disenfranchised.
Okay, so let me walk you to this thing because you won't just say it. So what you're saying is you think a minority of voters were in favor of the Civil Rights Act?
Either split or minority. That were able to vote, of people who could vote, specifically. There's a difference between general populace and people who can vote.
Okay, well, let's see if we can find information about it.
I tried searching this up, and the only thing I could find was a poll that you were referencing to, but didn't, again, as what I said before, it's just the pie between voters and the general populations. I believe suffragettes also had the similar thing, where it wasn't like a majority of people or a majority of male voters like really cared about like suffragette issues.
Can somebody find me this exact poll and tell me if they only looked at registered voters for this poll or if it was just a general population poll? This one right here, please. I don't know how to find the original Gallup poll.
I mean, I'm assuming that it's not voters because it says general broad support, but
General broad support can be general broad support among voters. Right.
yeah, but I would assume that they would specify it, no?
It might be standard that when you pull things like this, you're asking registered voters.
Okay, that's fair.
You're a fucking statistician!
Memes.
I don't understand how you're allowed to take, like, when it seems like all the polling data, if this is the general public, points to the public being in favor by a majority of these acts, and then say, well, the registered voter is going to be substantially different.
Well, isn't that what happens all the time? Isn't that what you complain about? That people, like, rally or they, like, you know, protest about these things, but they don't go out and vote? Like...
How is that related to this? I don't know what voter participation were at local levels. You're talking about, like, unprecedented marches for civil rights and stuff. It's possible that more people were voting at this time, like they did for Obama or whatever.
You're a fucking statistician!
Okay, I'm kind of confused at the argument that you're trying to make. Can you try rephrasing it, please?
I would expect people would be showing up at record numbers in these polls.
You're a fucking statistician!
Yes.
About broad support of civil rights?
Well, that the people that I would say historically probably wouldn't vote, poor or minority people, are probably, like, going to the polls.
I don't know. I don't, as far as no, we didn't have, like, a national election right before, like, voting for civil rights.
The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People announced that it had registered 5.5 million black voters in 34 states and the District of Columbia as of October 1st, and estimated that the black electorate could number as many as 12 million. In the end, that was about how many blacks turned out, according to census data compiled after the fact. Turnout reached 58.5% for an estimated black population of 20.7 million. Data on voting by race isn't available for years before 1964, but the NAACP estimated at the time that no more than 5 million African American voters voted in the presidential election of 1960. So it sounds like there was huge voter turnout for this.
Send that to me, please. Oh, fuck. Let me open it in incognito, right?
Black voters wouldn't go to the polls at such levels again until President Obama's first election in 2008.
Okay, you're gonna have to give me 1 second because it wants me to fucking log in. Um,
Apparently, immediately following the Civil Rights Act, LBJ's approval ratings were absolutely massive as well.
yeah. I'm pretty sure LBJ himself. Well, fuck. I don't want to say me the statement, so I remember clearly. Give me 1 second.
I'll be back when you do this. 1 second.
Oh.
Pixie, would you call the cops if someone was following you like down a dark alley?
I don't know. Maybe. I guess. I'm not for abolishing the police. That's not the stance I take.
Okay, I was just wondering.
I don't understand why people say that like Yi never loses or why Yi always wins when everybody uses like Pepe emotes for everything else. Hi,
Hi,
how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Doing
Does anybody have the Logitech G? Okay, the Logitech wireless charging pad for the mouse. Can someone explain to me why it's flashing? I just got it, and I got my Pro today. I don't understand. Gonna blow up. The pad, not the mouse. Low on battery. Got it. So if I just leave it, it'll be fine.
Sorry. I was gonna say I would vote for Yi if there was actually more emotes relating to Yi than Pepe, but like there's only one Yi emote.
All right, I'm back.
So
What do we got? Where are we at?
Okay, there's a couple of things I want to talk about, I guess, or that I'm
You're a
trying to
fucking
focus on.
statistician!
I might have to leave soon.
Hey,
but
buddy,
if
what happened to
I have
law
to cut it
coaching
early,
with
I'll
Ellis? Are
come
you
back later or
still
something.
doing it or not?
So there's a couple of things here. The first one is when it comes to voter turnout, like I'm still not sure like how this would like prove or disprove what I'm saying. We like even if black voter turnout is higher, like the argument I was like trying to make here is like, okay, what about like just voter turnout in general, right? So we were talking about like, oh, you know, popular vote was like 58% or whatever. But as we established before, popular vote does not mean the same thing as people who actually vote in elections. There can be
Sure, but like we're basically like the broad point that I'm trying to make, and I feel like I've sufficiently demonstrated it. There has to be like 3 or 4 different caveats for me to be incorrect here. Is that generally these changes that are pushed through Congress are generally legislatively popular. That people aren't just voting on things because they're morally right or whatever, but because the majority of their constituents, or at least the majority of Congress's majority constituents, are voting or in favor of these particular things. I think I feel like I've adequately demonstrated that.
That's something that I don't disagree with, right? Or that I agree with you on that blatantly. Like, hey, you know what? Politicians do vote for what their constituents want. But the point that I'm trying to get across is that even if
Earlier, okay, hold on. I'm the only reason I'm interrupting is because it seems like this happens a lot, where you say something, and then I'll give you a huge disagreement with exactly what you just said. And then you'll go, okay, well, of course I agree with that. So earlier, you explicitly implied that the Civil Rights Act was not popular, that the majority of Americans were against it. I explicitly asked you, do you think only a minority supported it?
That's why I said voting. I think that there's a difference between voting and popular.
Okay, LBJ won the popular vote by like 11 million votes, or 15 million votes. Like,
yes, but that's not necessarily the same thing as I support the Civil Rights Act.
Okay, I don't think there's any piece of evidence I can show you because even if I show you voting, maybe you'll think, well, I need to see a breakdown on what the most important issues to each of those voters are. Well, and then if I give you that, you'll say, I need to see what the breakdown on what they're likely to vote on is and how far they, like, it feels like there's nothing I can present to you. Like, I feel like this is pretty...
Well, not necessarily, right? Like, what I'm trying to say here is that, yeah, if we can see, like, a list of... Well, yeah, kind of just that, right? Exactly.
I'll never be able to satisfy you then. You're always going to be able to concoct a story that gets you out of, like, what's screaming in front of your face.
It's not always, like, a conducted, like, story or whatever. It's literally saying, like, hey, you know what? Like, voting is, like, a fucking complicated issue. Let's see what people were, like, what basically voters cared about at that time. Or
it's
what
not
voters,
that complicated. Like, the Civil Rights Act was a huge part. Like, LBJ, like, literally said that, like, the way I can honor Kennedy's memory or whatever the fucking most is by doing the fucking Civil Rights Act. This is a pretty fucking huge thing, and there was a huge, like, American, like, thought about this. Like, it was a really big part. Yeah, so the idea that, like, well, maybe people voted for him because of some other reason is insane. That's laughable.
No,
There's no way.
What I'm saying is that, hey, okay... At this point in time, as like this thing you just showed me, 58% of Americans had support for the Civil Rights Act. Now, does this 58% translate directly to voters? Okay, that's something that might be more contentious. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that there's like a portion of this population that did support it, but were disenfranchised. Now, you showed me a study that was like, okay, Black voter turnout was higher, which is like great. I wonder how much like Black voter turnout is, I guess, like compared to like the general popular vote turnout, which I'm sure is something that we can find.
Okay, Johnson came in at like an 80% approval rating. Like,
okay,
what else?
Wait, what? Wait, fuck. There's what I was gonna say. I mean, the point that I was like trying to get across is that yes, absolutely, legislators will vote for what their constituents want or what they believe that their constituents want. Absolutely. But we can also not say that like protesting doesn't influence like legislators' actions. Now, are we gonna say like, are they gonna influence them enough for legislators to completely like let go or throw away their own election? No. But the point is, they do have a pretty big amount of influence.
What? No, they don't though. It's only if the voting population already agrees with them.
But the voting population only like starts agreeing or only starts changing their mind after these protests.
Yes, that's my whole point.
Okay, wait, so is that it? Like,
what I'm saying is that protests influence the voter base. The voter base is what turns the mind of the politician.
Okay, then we don't seem to really disagree with anything.
I do not believe this was your position 30 minutes ago.
Well, no, my position was literally like, oh, yeah, no, I have an additional position to that.
Your position was that protesters influence legislators directly.
Yeah, I'm saying both can happen, right?
But I don't think like, how long did we have civil rights marches? Where was the influence there?
For years and years and years.
Not just years, like this was for decades, right? Like where was the legislative change? Because it wasn't legislatively popular. It took the voting base moving in a certain direction for this change to actually happen. I don't remember, it's been a long time, but I'm pretty sure reading on the women's suffragist people, one of their biggest strategies was to get their husbands to come over to their side to agree on things or whatever. Or I think
it takes decades of, how do you call it? It takes decades of like protesting, and it takes
of
decades
moving the
pressure
vote,
for
and
these
it's
things
only
to
when
change.
and it's only when the voting base changes that the actual legislative change gets done. It's never like, oh, the majority of the country opposes this, but man, those protesters should have changed the minds of those politicians. That just doesn't happen.
Whoa. Then it's, how do you call it? Suffragettes would literally not have the right to vote then if it was like strictly with that logic. Right?
No, what did I just say?
No,
Part of the huge goal of their movement was to change the minds of their husbands that could vote.
Yes, that was definitely part of the movement.
No, that was the whole movement. That was it, is getting men to vote on things.
Like, yes, that was definitely a huge part of the movement. That wasn't the only part of the movement. Not to mention, like, again, for a lot of these guys, even if it's like, oh yeah, I agree with my wife, it wasn't like a fucking make or break thing. It wasn't like, oh, I'm not going to vote for any of these politicians unless they support suffragettes, right? That's literally not how it happened. It happened after like years and years and years of like picketing and protesting until the point where I believe that we got to like World War II, and it was like, well, if the nation like keeps like seeing all these rowdy women out there, then it's not going to look very good for us, right? It's not going to look very good for us optically. It's going to look like we don't have our shit together, so we might as well pass it. Like that, at least like.
But if all of their voter base was against it and would rather bring the National Guard and shut them down or some shit, then they probably would have done that instead.
Well, yeah, they did. I don't know if it was the National Guard. I think it was. They
Mississippi.
brought down the National Guard to shut down some of the protests, where they ended up having to like force feed the woman really nasty shit. And it ended up just looking like a huge embarrassment for I guess like the American government at that point in time. Which is also like a decision that led to, hey, we should just like give these women rights to vote so it doesn't like look that optically bad for us. But didn't necessarily be like, it wasn't necessarily like a reflection or a thing about voter turnout. It was more of a, how do we look on a national scale?
So even if their voters opposed it, they still would have done it.
It's not that their voters opposed it, it's that their voters might be unmoved by it. Their voters might not really care that much about it.
So you think that giving women the right to vote at the time, they didn't really care that much about it? It just wasn't that big of an issue?
It was a big issue for women. I don't think for men who are voting it was like much of a big issue.
So if I were to go and look up wait, this isn't even true. Apparently most of the fuck, I don't even know the history here, so now I'm missing points. Apparently most of the country already had the right for women to vote in local elections before it even became like a national issue. So it seems like most of the country was already brought around on this.
Wait, what? What? Okay, now I have to search that up. Because from what I knew or from what I understood, like, technically, like, when it comes to the Constitution or whatever, there's actually, like, nothing in place to prevent women from, like, voting or not being able to vote.
So this is a map of women's suffrage laws in various states of the U.S. immediately before passage of the 19th Amendment of 1920. So it looks like the majority of states were already on board with some form of suffrage anyway. It almost looks like almost half of them had full suffrage regardless.
Okay. Wait, sorry, give me a second.
No problem.
I'll be right back. Yeah, it's just streaming.
Got him.
Shut up, Moon. I'm gonna beat your ass.
In what? In real life?
In chess right now, throwing up.
Not until you do the Patreon.
Actually, I thought you little pussy ass big ass motherfucker.
I already beat you.
Hi, I'm sorry. Did you guys hear that?
A little bit.
No.
Not much.
Okay. Sorry. Give me one little second to see what you sent me.
You're quite the statistician, Pixie.
He said the line.
Good job, Moon.
Oh my god, my new mouse is so light. This is shit.
What do you got?
The Wireless Pro or whatever.
Hell yeah.
Holy.
That's my baby.
Yeah, this is some good shit.
That's the mouse that's gonna get you to Diamond 4, baby.
Yeah, this is. It was it was mouse issues.
It
True.
was. Hold on one second.
It was. Why does he get up like 90 hours, 90 fucking times a stream, huh? How can he hear me? What the fuck? Yeah, I had the G603 before, but I was having an issue with the scrolling, where it would like scroll up and down. And, fuck. I still sleeping on the floor? Don't worry. Don't worry about where I sleep.
What do you mean by that? Say the line.
Yes,
Witten.
I am.
Say the line.
No, I'm not.
Say the line.
I'm not.
Say
Woody.
the line.
You can't just pull things and tell me to say the line. I gotta say it when I'm ready.
Moten, say the goddamn line.
Dude, my fucking apartment building, I don't know what happened. Somehow the water pressure got fucked and they were like, okay, we're gonna fix it, but we have to turn the AC and something else off for 4 hours. So it got like to fucking 80 in here. It was hell.
You're fine right now.
It's getting lower. Stop looking at my...
I'll look at whatever the fuck I want to look at, you little cuck.
You know what? I'm gonna look up yours.
Don't.
LA.
Don't!
Huh. 79.
Stop reading the temperature here. You're disgusting.
Humidity, 45%.
Fuck off.
Whoa.
He thinks 80 in Miami is hot. 80 inside feels incredibly different than 80 outside. I'm cool with 80 outside, but 80 inside is way too fucking...
You shouldn't talk to anybody about anything ever, because Twitch
Nobody.
and DGG chat will always give stupid fucking opinions on everything.
They're like, it's not 100 out, dude. Yeah. We don't have AC in fucking England, and we live somehow. Yeah, the climate's
Yeah,
way
not for
fucking
much
different.
longer, motherfuckers, because it's warming up over there, and you guys are starting to feel the pain and not having AC.
We better start buying them.
You're a fucking statistician.
Am I supposed to go in the caverns to find this guy? I think I am, right, guys?
No, he's on the overworld. 3rd trimester.
You're a fucking statistician.
Oh, Kuja gifted 5 statistician subs. Thank you, my dude.
No, you can't call your subs statisticians.
You're a fucking statistician.
It's
Twitch
statistician.
chat, you're not
idiot.
fucking statisticians.
You're a fucking statistician.
I can't believe you pay your Twitch chat moderators so well, dude.
Yeah?
You must love that chat.
Well, what can I say?
What are you up to, Mountain?
Yeah, man, what are you up to?
Statistician.
Waiting to after this Pixie combo. I'm gonna probably go over some non-weapon proficiencies with Destiny for D&D because those are, I think, the most important thing he needs to know.
Wait, is today a D&D day?
Nope.
You're a fucking statistician.
But it is a Smite day.
Help me.
No, that's tomorrow. We have to do it.
Oh yeah, because we don't have the graphic.
No, we're not supposed to.
Oh, we're not supposed to do
They
it
gave me
today?
an email. The campaign starts tomorrow. Sorry, we changed it
Oh,
to
okay.
Saturday.
That's fine.
Idiot. It's not fine.
You're a dumb
Idiot.
fuck.
Say it, you're the fuck.
Help me.
There we go. He said the meme, boys. Told you guys we get the meme out of him.
I'm gonna miss the 603 though, because the way you like put batteries into it, it's like you had to flip it off, and then like you took 2 fucking AA, and it's like loading slugs into a fucking gun. It was sick.
Was it though?
Yeah, it was like I was booting up.
Interesting. Moat. All right, Pixie. What are we looking at right now? What's going on?
What I'm doing right now is I'm going through the 1960 presidential election results, comparing the electorate, like the places that were, the electorate
Pixie,
with
LBJ
places...
had one of the most landslide victories of all time.
finish
There's
my
no
sentence.
way you're
That's
gonna
what I
math
was
your way out
doing.
of this. It's
Wait,
not-
let me finish my sentence.
Do you
Okay,
idiots
sorry,
even
sorry.
disagree?
Shut up, Mooten. You don't understand. This is politics, not League of Legends. Okay, sorry, go ahead. Finish your sentence.
So what I was doing is I'm looking at the map of suffrage in the United States, the ones that had full presidential suffrage, getting the electorates from there, and then comparing it with the electorates of states that didn't have presidential suffrage. Because I think like the result we would get from that would probably relate to like, okay, how influential was this voting basis in those places?
Well, and like that doesn't matter. In the Civil Rights Act, black people could vote, right?
Wait, I'm talking about women's suffrage. I'm confused.
Yeah, but I thought we were using this to compare it to the Civil Rights Act.
Well, we're comparing it to. Well, I thought we were comparing it to the whole idea that like, protests can never influence
Politicians to act against their constituents. Correct.
Yeah. Or yeah, I guess yeah. So that's what I'm trying to figure out now. I'm trying to see like, okay, all these places didn't have like presidential suffrage. Was it more electorally than the states that did? I'm trying to figure that out.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool, Mooten. Dumbass. You're a dumb fuck. God, he's so mad that he's a dumb
The
fuck.
new people who come to the stream must think we are fucking the dumbest
Why?
of the dumb.
Or they think we've got the
Because you
freshest
and I
names.
will just spout the same meme into the fucking ground.
You're a fucking statistician.
You've gotten
Help
lost in the
me.
weeds. You moved from defund abolish. Listen, it's not. This is the forest, not the weeds. Okay. My whole point is that politicians do things that are electorally popular. That's it. There is no protesting.
disagree with you.
No. Stop. You do disagree with me because your claim is that politicians will vote because they open their windows and they see protests outside, even if it's against their constituents. My claim is that politicians
these aren't
will.
mutually exclusive.
They
right?
are. Well, no. These are two
Politicians will-
separate things. Politicians.
Wait, are they really politicians voting will sometimes vote, will usually vote for what their general electorate wants or whatever.
Yes.
And will sometimes vote as a result of protest and pressure.
Only if the protest and pressure is changing their constituents, which means what you're asking is fundamentally the same question: is are they going to vote in line with their constituents? And the answer is always going to be yes, or that they're going to make their best attempt to.
Would you say that it's fair that they will sometimes, like, I guess, preemptively? I don't know how to phrase this right best way.
Yeah, try to guess where their constituents are going. Sure, yeah, but if they're wrong, they're
Okay.
going to lose their election, and they're going to recalculate that next time.
Okay, so with that in mind, if they then I think we're effectively in this kind of mute then, right? Because it's the whole idea of like, well, these protests might shift like a politician's mind to where like the majority of their constituents might go now, so they're gonna vote like based on like their predictions.
Yeah, I guess,
Instead
but there
of,
could be
like,
really
actual
popular
voting
protests that poll like not very well with the American people, in which case politicians would just ignore those protests. So at the end of the day, it comes down to what voters are going to vote on.
Or what
Would
I
or
guess-
should?
What they vote on, you dumb fuck.
Or what is it? What politicians like perceived voters will vote for.
Sure.
I think that's an important distinction.
I don't. I think it's meaningless because at the end of the day, we can just go back to like what is going to be the most electorally popular position. That's all it is.
Well, because it goes back to what we were like talking about before, right? That things can like vote popularly, but that doesn't actually mean that you're gonna get people out voting in like local elections. But maybe just that perception.
That's why I
of,
said
like, oh, this is-
electorally popular, not like some fringe thing that nobody cares about. But in terms of like the most electorally popular positions, those are going to be the ones that politicians probably tend to hold.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Well,
I don't think you're wrong, but I feel like I don't know. I have these arguments, and then it's like, oh no, you actually do think that it's like not this, and I'm like, no, it's not like black and white. It's like yes, there are
You can't.
cases
The
of this
problem
and
is,
there are
I
cases
think
of
you.
that.
I think you use that term. It's not black and white to basically destroy any meaningful conversation. So, for instance, if I say, if you drink too much water, will it kill you? The answer to that is a resounding yes. But, I mean, we could say it's not that black and white. Like, maybe somebody has some kidney thing that causes them to absorb water differently. Or maybe somebody drinks water that might actually be saline and it's got salt in it so you don't die from, like, lack of sodium or whatever in the body. Or maybe somebody has, like, a hole in their stomach that, like, there's a whole bunch of things. It's like, no, okay, no. Like, we say, like, it's not that black and white. But, like, in this particular issue, like, we can make, like, a pretty clear blanket statement of politicians will vote in line with what their constituents vote for them for. Like you're going to represent your voting base and what you think your voting base will be. That's like
Okay,
a pretty
I think-
easy statement. Go.
I think our biggest disagreement here is then just like in terms of impact, right? Because I'm making the thing that it's like not just that it's not just in black and white, but I would venture to say like it's 70-30 or like 60-40. Like there's actually like sizable periods of history where we do see that pressure and we do see that change. And you know, it happens before we even like get like completely through the voting booth that we're able to see these changes happen. That it just doesn't happen like, okay, now everybody's voted in, now this change happens.
I don't
That
know
it
if
happens,
that's
like,
how, and
before.
maybe my history just sucks. Doug might know more, or somebody else. Like, I don't think that's how it works, though. I think it actually does start, like, on local levels, and it tends to move from the bottom up, with like, very notable, limited exceptions. But that generally, like, states try out things, and then maybe it moves up to higher levels, it starts getting, represented in the federal government, and then you get, like, big federal laws that are passing. But it's not just, like, the change just comes from a huge federal law, and then boom, now everybody's got to get on board, but that they're usually pushed at from smaller levels first.
Yeah, from my understanding of history, that's usually the case, except when it comes to things that have to do with like people's rights, basically.
But
so
what do you mean? Wait, what do you mean by that, though? Like, we just saw the women's suffrage map. Most states had women with the ability to vote. Like,
well, no, but that's why I'm calculating the electorate right now, because so far as it seems, for from what the fuck I'm calculating, the vast majority of the electorate were states that didn't have women's presidential suffrage. So why would it make sense for I guess
wait, hold on. Wait, so you're going to try,
Wilson
you think that whatever you're calculating, you think it's going to show you that the majority of support for women's suffrage came from states where women were explicitly denied the right to vote, and the states that did support the right...
that's the point. It disproves what you're saying. It's saying like, hey, you know what? You're saying like, okay, Woodrow Wilson is going to care a lot about what his electorate base says, right? Or that's going to be his primary focus. Absolutely, yes. Okay, so then it would make sense for the majority of people to have voted for him to be like pro women's suffrage, and that's why he changed it. That's why he passed like women's suffrage. And then it's like, well, no, look at the majority of the electorate that voted for him. They didn't have universal suffrage. They didn't really want or they didn't even have like presidential women's suffrage. So why would he specifically care about what they wanted if they didn't even vote for him?
Okay, I feel like we're getting into levels of where we can try to make whatever mathematical argument we want at this point. Then.
Well, it's not like you're making it sound like it's absurd when like it's not. It's just like, okay, like if your premise is right, if your logic is right, then it would make sense for Woodrow's constituents or who are able to vote for him to be from states that were like pro universal women's suffrage, right? Like that's why he changed it. That's why he passed whatever. Like, I think that makes like it's a pretty like logical argument to make, saying like, okay, we should look at like what states his largest constituents were at, or where did he get like most of the electorate vote, because then he would want to appeal to those states the most. And then if it turns out like, hey, you know what, like the states that voted for him the most are the ones that held the heaviest like electoral weight, whereas states that were not like for presidential suffrage, then wouldn't you say that shows like a flaw?
I mean, women's suffrage was a constitutional amendment, so I don't even know what the president has to do with this. Like, women's suffrage must have been supported by a majority, or by a, I don't even remember for a minute. It's a supermajority in the House and the Senate to pass? Like, that's a really hard thing to do, so I'm guessing it must have had broad support among most people in the United States for it to actually pass. That's so many votes. That's so many legislators.
From my, at this point in history and time, I believe Woodrow Wilson did have a majority of Senate and the House like on his side, which I would argue like, yeah, if he's not like for or favor of women's suffrage, it's really hard to think that like all these legislators that view him as like a party leader are going to like fall out of line with him. Like, and this point in time, I would argue the president has like a tremendous like amount of power. It is probably like the most like, I guess, succinct way of us to say like, okay, whether this
has nothing to do with presidential power, though. Passing an amendment needs an overwhelming amount of support from the American people.
Yes, passing Passing an amendment does require an overwhelming of support in like both houses of both houses of Congress.
Yeah, need like a supermajority plus 3/4 of state to ratify. Like, this was something that was broadly supported by the American people before it became.
But the idea is that the idea is the whole concept of like, okay, the president here or the presidency here does have the power to like push these things through Congress or apply pressure on his party to fall into line.
I don't.
Yes, that
I
is
would.
literally.
I would be shocked if there was a single amendment in the history of U.S. history that was electorally unpopular that a president single-handedly pushed. Impossible.
Why do you make it so black and white?
Because because what I just said is black and white. Without even knowing American history, I would stake $100 on that and give you odds on it. There's no
case of American history where the Senate and legislator were under the same party as the Senate and legislator, the same shit. Where the Senate, where Congress was the same party as the president. And they went against when they went against the president's wishes or orders and passed an amendment going against what he believes. Like, I would love to see an example of that, because to me that's fucking crazy.
Well,
like,
it's probably not going to happen because the same people that vote
out of line.
No, the people that vote on the legislature also votes on the president, Pixie. So the chances of you having a radically different president than the majority, the supermajority of the House and Senate is probably almost impossible. Like, the president is voted on by the same people. So you're not going to get a totally different president from the makeup of your entire legislature, probably.
Yeah, and that's why I would argue, like, the president is basically, I guess, like, kind of the most, if not one of the most important things when it comes to, like, getting these things passed through, because he's, like, a representative of what all, like, the other legislators voters
I don't even
are
know if
for.
I don't even know if I could be wrong. Does the president even vote? Does the president even have a say on amendments?
I don't believe so. I believe that's something that's just the House and Congress.
So
there was something I was gonna say. Fuck. This okay, I remember what I was gonna say. So it's this whole idea of like, hey, you know what? Like, why do you think that you have all these legislators like in Congress like fucking licking Donald Trump's boot? And it's because like, okay, it's this idea that the president holds like an extreme amount of power, that when it comes to like general elections, it will influence them. It's because they're like the people who voted for the president are most likely people who voted for you as well if you're under the same party line. So it makes sense for you to follow what he says. So if the president suddenly is like, okay, you know what, like I think we should give women the right to vote, you're probably gonna fall under line.
Sure, but the only reason you're doing that is because he's electorally popular anyway. And women's voting is probably going to be a pretty big issue, such that that's going to influence whether people like him or not.
Wait, I'm gonna send you. Fuck. I'm sorry. I kind of like blanked out for a second. Can you repeat that one more time? My bad.
Like chances are, if the president is taking a huge stance on that issue, people are probably their votes are probably being somewhat influenced by it. Like I'm trying to conceive of this world. You're giving me a world where like there's Amendment X that we want to pass, but it's not that important to voters. So all of them might vote on a president that's against Amendment X, but maybe they'll vote on legislatures that will try to pass Amendment X because it's third or fourth on their list of issues. Like to try to like come up with the math to make this work is like like it's so much easier to just say like constituents generally are represented by the people that they elect. Generally, the elected body tries its best to represent the voters. That explains everything, like so easily. Everything falls like, as opposed to like, well, we need to look at the percentage of the types of minorities that voted in the states and then voted on other legislatures to try to see if their third or fourth opinion lined up with maybe the first or second opinion of the people that tried to pass the amendments, and then we need to look at the voter break. Like, there's like, it's so we're at like levels, like not even Bernie mathematicians were able to get this deep into the electorate. Like, it's so complicated.
Okay.
And then like even president, like historically, apparently, like under Andrew Johnson, like there were multiple amendments that were literally pushed through that he didn't like. I don't know, like this idea that
was Andrew Johnson's a
Gold
majority of like
Delicus
the
should always
Congress,
have a sub.
his party or were they against him? That's the question I would come down to. But yeah,
the
like,
point is that to get a presidential, or I'm sorry, to get an amendment to the Constitution, you need voter support to do it.
Okay, here. Let me read this quickly. This is from the Our Documents.government. So it's a history website, I'm guessing, for the United States government. Here's a brief explanation of the history behind the 19th Amendment. By 1916, almost all the major suffrage organizations were united behind the goal of constitutional amendment. When New York adopted women's suffrage in 1917 and President Wilson changed his position to support an amendment in 1918, the political balance began to shift.
Statistician.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr.
So it's this
Mouton,
idea
I
that like
forgot.
when the president started supporting this, like more legislators started supporting it as well, which
Wait, did he change his position because he thought it was morally right, or did he change his position in response to public backlash?
Yeah, he changed his position because women were picketing and protesting and literally went on a hunger strike, and they
Because it was gonna get him unelected.
But no, but that's a whole idea.
No one
that
gives a
it's like-
fuck about people protesting if they're still gonna win their election. Do you think they care about women protesting? They already didn't want them to vote. Why would they give a fuck if they go hungry? Right? The problem is probably more like,
It's optically, right? It's a whole idea of like looking at a national stage and being like, holy shit, like it seems like we're gonna go to like, how do you call it? Yeah, it is at the end of the day, yeah, an optic thing. That's like, hey,
That influences
oh my God, this
voters.
looks really bad. Yeah, but the point is that the protest itself was not something that directly like changed voters at that second. It's something that like created an optic shift that led to change. That at that moment, like these
Because it
people could
influenced
not
voters.
vote.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but the whole idea is that like, oh no, like you're only going to see like change until once you see it after the voting booth, and it's like no, like politicians will preemptively do change. And yes, part of it is like, or you can even I'll fucking go with the claim like 100% because they think like it might affect their elections. But the point is that this can be done before you get to the voting booth, and that's important.
Yeah, of course. The politicians will try to like guess where the electorate is gonna be. I don't understand.
Then why were you making the claims earlier that was like, oh, no, like this only matters like until like after people vote? Like,
Because if it seems like an issue that people won't vote on, then politicians aren't gonna do anything but pay lip service to it.
Okay, but if it seems like an issue that is causing like a huge like obviously like bad situation or is putting like a lot of pressure, you know, maybe you can say like, oh yeah, like in a couple of years, like we'll see if people vote or not. Yeah, whatever. But until then, it does create a certain amount of change. Do you agree with me on that?
Wait, say that one more time.
Okay, so until you get to the voting booth, until we see the voting booth, until like in this period from like 1 to 5 before we get to 6.
Bro.
Protests can create like changes in legislation because of pressure, because of what we perceive as optics of like how can influence us in the next election. Like these actions do lead to change. Even
If voters are taking notice and it looks like voters are going to be influenced by it, then yes.
Okay.
But if it's not electorally popular, then never.
Okay. I think we're good then.
Okay. All right.
Hope
What
you
are
have a
you
good
doing
night.
today? Where are you going?
I was supposed to have a psych meeting like hours ago, but my psychologist didn't respond to me, so I have no idea what I'm gonna do.
Well, fuck them up. Good luck. Okay. Thanks for the conversation,
Bye.
Ben.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Just
Shut up.
destroyed her.
You are a fucking cuck. That's what you are, Mooten.
No.
Yes. Hey, if I
No.
stay here, will the goblin guy walk here, or do I need to like go out of screen for him to come back?
You have to go to.
Hey, Mooten.
What?
Why don't you shut the fuck up, you little cuck? See how I got him, guys? Hey, Dan.
Hey.
Look how I can just get him to respond to me without even trying.
What a cuck.
What a cock, Dan. We used to respect you, Dan. What happened?
Yeah, true.
What happened to you, Dan?
I don't need this level of abuse.
You're a fucking
nothing.
statistician.
But you'll take it.
We
cuck.
don't disagree.
Just kidding.
I'm not.
Did you win your wrestling today, Dan?
Oh, that was yesterday. No.
Dan, what the fuck is going on with your Rust crew, man?
I'm playing against PvP Chads, man. They can put their cursor on the other guy's head better than I can. What can I say?
Dan, sounds to me like what you need to get is a Logitech Pro wireless.
I had
He's
that.
got 8 of them.
Yeah, not a fan.
Dan's like fucking Squidward with the alarm clocks. Do you remember that episode?
Squidward with the alarm clocks?
Yeah, I think it was the episode where.
What are you talking about?
I'm gonna explain to you. Hold up.
You mean SpongeBob SquarePants? Did he say
Will you hold
Squidward
up?
SquarePants? What are you talking? Are you
Didn't
okay right now?
No.
Wait,
I
what
just
are
said
you talking
Squidward.
about?
What is your problem? Are you losing it? It was just Squidward. That's all I said.
He's mad, boys. Look at how mad he's getting. Okay, sorry, what were you saying?
It's past.
I'm sorry. I just it wasn't. It was my fault. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you, Moot.
Did your pylon guy show up yet?
No, I don't know when he's going to get here.
Did you leave it on all night?
Shut up. No, it hasn't been night yet. You're a dumb fuck.
You're a dumb fuck. Talk about the Patreon. He's gonna make it today. He said.
Did I really say
He
that?
lost in chess.
Okay, play me once more. Let's go. Play me.
No, I already beat you. I already won.
If you play me and beat me in chess, I will start the fucking Patreon right the fuck now.
On your life?
On my life.
Okay. Sorry, second one.
What happens if Mutin loses, though?
Then he doesn't have to start up.
Right now, yeah.
What?
I don't know, Moot. Moody, moody, moody.
Chanel, please fuck off.
What?
She just will stare at me for like an hour, dude. I swear to God.
Why do you hate dogs so much?
Cats are better. Am I right, Mutin?
True.
Do you think it's kind of weird that Mootin fucking hates cats? Why don't you tell him what you did to the cat last time? Why doesn't it go in the same room
Why are
as
you being
anymore?
weird?
No, I'm just curious if you've told people how you treat it.
The cat?
Yes.
I don't have a cat.
I mean the dog. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Fucking loser. That's what you are, Moot. You're cringe. Stop chatting her up. You're cringe. Caught in Skylakes. Oh my god.
I still can't believe cats can orgasm. Fuck me.
What the fuck?
That video was insane.
What video? What are you talking about?
Do you want me to link it? You've seen it. I linked it to you.
Do you just watch this every single day?
No, someone brought up a chat. Can you join the chess thing?
You didn't even send me a link.
I'll bet you 1,000.
Oh, you fucked it up once. Okay, ready? You will be getting crushed here. I'm in peak shape right now, okay? Ooh. They call him the Snap Bootin. You okay?
Yeah, I'm just...
You sure? No!
Yeah!
Wait.
Smash it!
Fuck you, you fucking cuck. He's a fucking statistician, guys.
How could you beat me?
We need to have like a current. Oh yeah, I read this. Thank you, Apollos. You're very smart. Thank you. Yes. We need to have like a
172 pages.
Yeah. We need to have like a thing for like current events, like a Reddit post every day, so that when something big happens, we don't get people that come into chat for the next.
No,
week.
we need like a chat MOTD.
A message of the day. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So that people come in.
Like Destiny knows that Biden beat Bernie or whatever. Like some
yeah.
shit.
Jesus.
Need people to read that? It'll be like the top of the screen, like the polls are.
How do people get into this channel? What do they need? Is it just notable?
Yeah, this is just notable.
You're cringe, bro. Is there a way to make the text on Discord bigger or smaller? I feel like I made my text smaller, but I can't tell.
You can, yeah.
What's the shortcut?
User settings.
No, there must be a keyboard shortcut, or I'm getting more blind.
It's in user settings and appearance.
Control plus. What? That's not doing anything.
Okay, go to user settings and appearance. Fuck
no,
them.
there's a shortcut for it. There's a shortcut for it.
No, there's not. There's not.
Top row, not right side. Oh, top row. Oh my God, there is. Thank God. Oh yeah, okay.
No,
Jesus, I thought I was
not.
like, I thought something happened and I was just like losing my sight out of nowhere. Jesus.
Oh wait, that is fucking bad. Holy shit.
Yeah, holy fuck.
What'd you have it on? Probably like 16 or something, maybe lower. Boomer. I'm guessing you saw this, and this is why we need an MOTD. But did you see Bernie endorse Joshua's opposition?
I did not see that. That's fucking hilarious. Holy shit, get dumpstered.
You're a fucking statistician!
Fuck you, laugh Pepe, you stink. Stop putting your balls on people's chins. Also easy, you suck.
What?
What are you doing? You just look at the screen?
Don't ever worry about what I'm doing, ever.
We're worried about you. Oh yeah, Patreon. Let's go.
What, Apollos? Yeah, that's right. Mute yourself. Deafen yourself, you little fucking cuck.
Do you know how many non-weapon proficiencies you get at level 2?
It should be 4, I think.
Really?
You're a fucking statistician!
It's only 5 if you do the martial art.
Can't tell if you're bullshitting because I know that you read it. So that's why. That was the issue.
He's so mad. Oh my God, he's so fucking mad. Oh my God, listen to how fucking mad he is. He's so mad. Okay, how do I hate
Oh my
this
God, he's gonna do it.
website. Oh my God. The only reason I haven't done it is I just don't know how to use this shit-ass bullshit-ass site.
Yeah, you're a boomer now.
Well, what do I do? How do I make a new Patreon? I have an account. Make a post? No. Need ideas for a post? Overview? I don't know any of this shit.
Hold on, I'm gonna help you. Okay, stop freaking out.
There's nothing here that helps me make what I need to do. Oh wait, hold on. Finish page.
You're a fucking statistician!
Name of page. Can one account have one page?
Now, what I would suggest is maybe instead of using the Destiny account,
Right,
maybe you make another account called Tombs of Scoria or something. I don't think you can do that anymore.
Do what?
Face.
What?
You're a fucking statistician.
Wowie.
You're a fucking statistician.
Stop.
Hurry up, I've got $300
I don't know.
and the need for a shout
Everybody's
out.
done it, and now your voice is starting to annoy me. Getting pissed off. Okay. Can I have multiple accounts? I don't want multiple accounts. I want multiple pages per one account. Can you do that? Patreon and multiple pages with one account. Oh, okay. It's someone said I should make several accounts with the tip. Oh my god. Okay.
You're a fucking
statistician.
YYJAU.
Stop stealing my memes.
You.
Those are my words.
I made those memes. I brought them out from you.
You did groom me for the perfect memes.
What do you mean by that?
You're a fucking statistician.
The funniest shit will be is if you get DMCA'd for the statistician meme because there's like some Linkin Park in the bag.
Moody revenge. Jesus. Can you make the sub sound pull randomly from an array of moot quotes so you don't get burned out by one? I don't know if I can.
No, that's what I'm doing for my stream, okay? I need Afrobot to do it. He handles my stream out. Who is Anarchy of Rills? Why are they in here?
I think she
Anarcho
wants to
Frills?
Argue about police defunding. Another one. Another defunder.
Another one.
I'm working on the Patreon. Don't worry. Okay.
Do you think?
You're a fucking statistician.
Oh my god, you just got a hype
Why
train in
do
your
you wanna
Twitch
go
chat,
on a
dude.
date?
Shut the fuck up.
Everyone say it with me. Hype.
Shut up, Luton. Don't derail the hype train. It's integral. Okay, what describes your content? Podcast? No. Illustrations, animation? No. Music? No. Communities? No.
Garbage.
Videos? No.
That's what
Writing-
describes it.
Games and software. And other. Does your work contain 18 plus themes such as real or illustrated nudity?
No.
How do you know what kind of campaign we're going to do?
True.
We'll say no for now. Pick your currency. The currency you choose with your painful campaign. US dollars, always. Want to
True.
reserve
Wait.
What?
You could do it in Euro and scam the US people.
No. True, though. True, but no. Name of Patreon page. Tombs of Scoria? Wait, what the fuck is the name of our show?
Tombs of Scoria.
How do you spell that?
TOMBS space OF space SCORIA.
True.
What?
Do you think we're gonna get basketball applause?
No.
They're gonna fucking stonewall it.
Kyrie Irving's gonna stonewall it.
Fuck Kyrie.
No,
He just doesn't want to play because he knows his team can't win. Let LeBron and AD get it their chip. Who do you think is winning this year?
Oh.
If it-
Speaking of basketball.
Be careful.
You watch
Yes.
Uncut Gems, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what any basketball players look like, so I wouldn't.
Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, Kevin. I assumed that was an actual actor. That was a fake basketball player. That guy did
that's a
so
real
well.
motherfucker,
He
yeah.
did really good. When you see like athletes that go to like have cameos or whatever in
Usually they
movies,
cringe.
it's garbage. It's like, oh, it's cute. They're there to do their shit or whatever. He was really good in that movie. Because I looked him out. I was like, wow, I wonder if that's a real. And it was. I was shocked. I was like, damn, that was crazy. Yeah, he did a really good job.
Those directors do a really good job of like making you believe like the character, the story and shit. Did you watch oh fuck, I can't remember what their previous movie was called. I'd have to look it up.
Do that.
Oh yeah, Good Time. You should check that out. Good Time's some good shit too.
The NBA 2K voice acting meme is hilarious. Hold on.
All right, because if I have to learn anything, it's that you have to tune out the noise. Only thing that matter is what happened between the lines. Do the work, listen to the coaches, and the result will take care of themselves. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the money, the nice hotel, the private jets. Remember
The
that,
ending
and
of
you'll be
Uncut
fine,
Gems
okay?
fucked me up, man.
Yeah. You're right. He's right. We got too much
NBA
talent,
2K, so-
and we work too hard, and we playing like this. We got to get this train right back on track, real quick, like.
That's right. We all have that attitude.
So what do you
Train
think
will
about
be
the
rolling
court's
in no
Title VII holding?
Wait, what did you say?
The Supreme Court's Title VII holding today.
Oh yeah, that the gays and the trans peoples are protected under that sex clause or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
And that Neil Gorsuch wrote the opinion.
Yeah, that's pretty cool too, huh?
No, not really.
Why not?
Because it perfectly aligns with like his actual judicial theory, like strict textualism.
Wait, did he write the majority or the dissenting?
Yeah, he wrote the majority.
Wait, why is it
opinion,
bad that
but-
he wrote the majority?
Well, it's not bad. It just doesn't mean anything.
Well, I mean, if you get like a hardline quote-unquote constitutionalist that's like coming out in support of Title VII protections for trans people, isn't that like really good?
He's a strict textualist, meaning like he'll look at exactly what the words on the paper say, and he'll that's how he derives his jurisprudence, right? So like the word sex is like the foundational word in there, and that's basically what turned his ruling. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to pivot one way or another. It just means that he managed to sort of fit in his own form of jurisprudence in the holding without really signaling which way he's actually gonna rule in the future.
Fuck him, dude. I guess we didn't need him anyway, right? It was a 6-3 ruling, so.
Yeah, but 6-3 means a lot more than 5-4.
What happens if something passes like 9-0? Do they write a dissenting
Yes.
opinion? Or?
Do you still? No, I mean you just have an opinion, and then you could have concurring opinions when.
Who's going to be the dissenter in a 9-0 ruling, Mooten?
Well, I don't know.
You do know that there's never been a 9-0 ruling in the history of the Supreme Court, right?
True.
False.
So you're just lying.
Yep. Hey, if I put a cover photo on a Patreon, can I change it later or?
Yes, of course.
Really?
I mean, I don't know, but that would be the dumbest fucking programming garbage in the world if you could.
All right, time to go jack some fucking.
Just yoink some koi.
Mm-hmm.
Can you not? How do you search for specific dimensions on Google? I know you can do this.
I usually just type in 1920 by 1080. What? Can you go over the Patreon tiers again? I think that's what we're going to talk about as well.
I don't know what I want to use for the cover photo right now, Mooten.
Okay, well, don't let that stop you.
It is.
You know,
It is
keep
stopping
moving
us.
keep moving the ball.
Oh my god! I tried to click and drag an image, and I just replaced the whole web page. Oh my god! 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 Oh my god!
Ooh, what's up, Twitch chat?
Got him. Bernie Sanders, you're being cringe.
No, you're being...
How fucking mad is that Joshua guy?
Probably doesn't give a fuck, dude. He's got 200 grand in his pocket. He doesn't give a fuck.
You bigoted Ruth.